Chapter 785. Holy City, Civilian District. It was a messy, poor, dirty, and unplanned area of densely packed bungalows. The winding and narrow road was filled with dirty water. A large number of fungi had grown in the overly humid environment. Fungi and mushrooms could be seen in the corners and cracks of the walls, as well as moss plants on the stone floor. Rats with mixed fur scurried around under their feet. However, these rats were still relatively friendly to humans. They tried not to enter the house and instead searched for food in the garbage dump. They also did not deliberately spread germs. They seemed to be very clear that they could survive because humans had built the holy city. Even the low-level security officers avoided this area as much as possible. They just casually wrote on the investigation report and considered that they had completed the patrol task in this area. At this time, an outsider with a high-collared trench coat completely covered his face walked into the area. A chill emanated from his body. It had no effect on the sewage here, but it could make the residents tremble and dispel the evil in their hearts. He went all the way to the deepest part of the street and stuck to an alley that only allowed one person to pass. Dong, dong, dong. He reached out and knocked on an iron door embedded in the wall. The partition window opened, and a pair of fierce eyes peeked out. The mysterious man in the trench coat outside the door took out a piece of white paper and drew a dagger and fist imprint on it. Rumble. The iron door opened, and a passage leading to the underground was revealed. Have fun. The strong guard, who was covered in bags of medicine and relied on drugs to maintain his body, watched the customer go to the secret underground area and then locked the door. Just walking in the corridor, one could hear the voice of desire coming from below. Underground boxing arena, drug exchange, and so on. Some activities that violated the laws and regulations of the holy city were secretly carried out below. The mysterious man in the trench coat rejected the invitations of several young ladies, drug dealers, and gamblers along the way. After showing his VIP card, he went to the small private room in the deepest part. Such a VIP card directly disturbed the person in charge of the underground area, a psychic with a rat's tail and strength comparable to an ordinary knight. He turned into a black shadow and rushed into the private room. Sir, why did you come in person? I'm here to see someone. No one is allowed to come close to the private room. Yes, by the way, find a young lady who has just turned 20 years old and is in good health to come to me. Almost done. The person in charge was called Mace. Black Rat. His power came from this lord's gift. According to his understanding, he didn't think that Sir was here to have fun. He hurriedly arranged for a young lady who had just started working here and had yet to officially take up the post to accompany His Excellency. Since Boss Matt had repeatedly told his new little sister to be obedient, the latter was in an extremely unnatural and nervous state when she was heading to the private room. The little sister with brown hair and blue eyes had just stepped into the private room. The mysterious man waved his hand, and the door closed automatically. At the same time, a layer of ice crystals covered the entire room, cutting off its connection with the outside world. The temperature inside the room instantly dropped by 20 degrees Celsius, causing the little sister to shiver from a cold. The next second, the mysterious man looked concerned. He threw the blanket beside him to her and asked at the same time, "What's your name?" "Eliza." At this time, the mysterious man also pulled down the collar that covered his face, revealing a handsome face that made his little sister's heart tremble and blush. This person was Demps Martin. "Yes, come and sit." "Oh, okay." When she sat down next to Demps, a flame had already ignited in the little sister's heart. Her fair thighs involuntarily rubbed up and down. "Close your eyes." As if she had been charmed, the little sister couldn't refuse any of Demps's requests at all. The moment she closed her eyes, she had already made all the preparations. However, Dempis, on the other hand, was performing some sort of strange ritual. 1. Pour a glass of wine. 2. Grow your 6th finger. 3. Grit your teeth and endure the pain. Cut off your finger with a knife. The cut-off finger immediately turned into a frantically twisting, transparent tentacle. The moment it fell into the wine, it immediately dissolved. The process of cutting off the finger was so painful that Demps had to take a special painkiller. Drink it. Don't resist. If you do well, you will receive a gift. Okay, when Eliza drank the wine, her body immediately turned into a medium, attracting a certain existence from outside the city to directly descend into her body. Crack! The clothes on her back were torn apart. Two arms grew out from her back and shoulder blades. Together with her own arms, they covered her eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. Demps immediately lowered his head and called out in a respectful tone, "Mother!" The possessed little sister turned her palm that was covering her mouth. The mouth structure had already been transferred to her palm. Many overlapping voices sounded. "You actually met me in such a way. Don't you have a chance to leave the city recently? Nicholas has been very close to the people of the machinery faith recently. It's not convenient for me to take a ride. The great expedition is approaching, and the inspection system at the city gate is much stricter. I can only meet you in such a way. Have you confirmed the target?" "Yes." Demp squeezed out a drop of ink from his fingers and dripped it into the wine bottle. In an instant, the entire bottle was dyed black, indicating the target of the great expedition. "In particular, I need to remind you that we will have 6 commanders on our side, and one of them involves the Saintess. Mother, try to control the following distance of hut as much as possible." The Saintess will follow them? Is it really okay for such an important person not to stay in the Holy City? Perhaps there is a substitute for this Saintess that can maintain the supreme holy object in the Holy City. Interesting. Such a weak human race can actually establish a war with the old king as the target in just 100 years. I hope it won't be a one-sided fiasco. That would be too boring. No, with the presence of Malone and Alex, the great expedition will definitely be a world stage that Mother will be satisfied with. Ha! I'm looking forward to it. Just as little brother Dempus was secretly carrying out some private matters, a voice suddenly rang out. On Handong's side, after leaving the Steam City, he issued a large number of resurrection potion production orders to the manor, hoping to meet the demand of resurrection soldiers within a month. It was estimated that the great expedition would officially begin in less than 10 days. However, Han Dong still had no intention of resting. After taking care of some trivial matters, he went to the library, advanced reading room, early in the morning to relax his mind by reading books. He wanted to adjust himself to his best state before the expedition. During the last period of time, Mia was secretly training in the Knights of Misfortune and couldn't leave. While Han Dong was reading alone, he suddenly smelled a different smell. At the same time, the Hell Blood Skull necklace, hidden in his collar, suddenly sensed something. Chapter 786. Library, Advanced Reading Room. It was one of the highly restricted areas of the Knight Academy. The sealed book collection inside was also unique in the Holy City. Most of the people who came here were teachers of the Knight Academy or members of the Order of Knights who continued to read information. Every time they entered, they had to pay a high reading fee, regardless of whether they borrowed books or not. Han Dong used his relationship with Deputy Director Hera, his identity as a knight, and his first place in the Knight Conference. As long as he paid the fee, he could come here to read at any time. Proviston's Book of the Dead, The Dark History of the Watley Family, The Death of the Styx, these sealed books, which required one to have their identity verified, sign a confidentiality agreement, and pay a large sum of money to borrow them, were the books that Han Dong had been reading recently. The inside of the books talked about some black magic factions, origins, and derivative stories. At the same time, it also contained some incomplete original pages of unknown origins, as well as the author's interesting personal understanding of black magic. Perhaps because the great expedition was about to begin, there were only a few people in the advanced reading area. Han Dong held the 3 books and found a quiet and relatively empty corner. After flipping through the books for less than 10 minutes, there was suddenly an additional smell in the air of the reading room. A different smell. Generally speaking, most of the readers who went to the advanced reading room were fixed. Han Dong had been here for so long that he was basically familiar with everyone's smell. Just as he smelled this unique scent, he suddenly realized that something was amiss. The dark blood skull, hidden in his collar, also reacted, scaring Han Dong so much that he immediately woke up Count in his body and suppressed the dark blood reaction together. Han Dong had never seen such a situation before. Even when he met the Blood Knight, Lucius, only the latter sensed the power of the dark blood, but the skull itself did not have any reaction. A high-level knight of the Scarlet Knights? When he looked through the closely arranged bookshelves, an exquisite woman happened to push the door open and enter the reading room. She wore a black leather corset with silver-white fasteners. She wore a loose black hooded coat. Under the black skirt that just passed her knees, a pair of black silk stockings with ring-shaped patterns was revealed. It was paired with a pair of exquisite black leather shoes. The relatively large hood covered more than half of her face, revealing only a little of her fair and tender face, a tall nose, and a pair of plump lips. The fresh and moist color of her lips didn't seem to be the effect of lipstick. Instead, it was the bright red that this woman carried herself. Her red lips were particularly eye-catching under the pure black color of her outfit. The woman also borrowed a few sealed books. With a rather sexy gait, she slowly walked over from the aisle of bookshelves. Her every move carried a hint of charm. He arrived at Han Dong's desk and slowly sat down opposite him. However, Han Dong's gaze did not linger on the woman for too long. He continued to read the book in his hand, and in a short period of time, he once again immersed himself in reading. That was it. The two of them looked at the books in their hands. They didn't get up, didn't drink water, and didn't do anything else. It was time for the library to close. The gentle melody of the piano pulled Han Dong out of the story world. He subconsciously glanced at the woman sitting opposite him. Since the other party didn't greet him, Han Dong directly packed up his books and prepared to leave. However, just as Han Dong stood up, a voice suddenly rang out. A charming voice echoed in Han Dong's mind. Just the sound alone stimulated the blood in his body to accelerate, causing a stream of blood to flow out of his nose. I've already told Director Reynolds that after the library closes tonight, I will occupy this advanced reading room alone. If you want to continue reading, you can stay here. Okay. Han Dong continued to sit down and read. After a while, the librarian in charge of this area brought 2 fresh steak with blood and a bottle of red wine that was more than 50 years old. This scene was enough to show that the woman in front of him was different. Want to eat something? Thank you. Han Dong didn't refuse. He was indeed hungry. While eating, the woman sitting opposite him finally took off her hood. Under the slightly curly black hair, there was a beautiful, flawless face. Han Dong was slightly surprised by this appearance, but he quickly shifted his gaze to the steak. Compared to the woman, the steak was more fragrant. However, just as he cut a piece of steak and put it into his mouth, Han Dong suddenly realized that the woman in front of him was somewhat familiar, but because of her hairstyle, makeup, and aura, as well as his hunger, he couldn't recall it for a while. Soon, he compared it with the image in the depths of his memory. He knelt down on one knee. Greetings, Captain Xiaya. Oh, you only recognize me now? See no evil. I didn't pay much attention. Also, when I saw Captain Xiaya at the city gate, your image and temperament are very different from now. I was still thinking about the story in the book, so I didn't react for a while. It seems that you spend a lot of time in the library. Don't be restrained by etiquette. Drink with me. Yes, the red wine seemed to have an additional scarlet color because of Captain Xiaya's contact. Ordinary people would find it difficult to accept, but Han Dong, who had tasted blood wine and watered his talent tree with it, felt that this red wine was exceptionally delicious. In order to avoid awkwardness, Han Dong found a piece of news that he had heard not long ago to start a conversation. I heard that Captain Xiaya will be going on an expedition as the 4th General. Congratulations. Captain Xiaya's expression became ugly as she slowly swallowed the steak in her mouth. To be honest, I still want to live for a few more years. After all, at this stage, I'm not really at my peak. Joining the expedition is just the arrangement of the council. Personally, I don't have much confidence that we will be able to achieve our goals in this great expedition. Let's not talk about this for now. Speaking of which, you have 2 unique auras. The first one I smelled during the Great Betrayer incident. According to my investigation, it should come from the Scarlet Mountain Villa that you and Lucius came in contact with together. There should be a high-level hybrid demon that belongs to the blood god. He's the target of your lousy seed, right? As for the second aura, it seems to have appeared recently. I smelled it downstairs in the library. It's a king-level aura, not from outside the city, but from the Destiny realm. Am I right? Did you get it yourself, or did Crow or Hugo give it to you? It's a Destiny treasure that I got from the final reward chain event. It's an incomplete item. Han Dong did not hesitate and took out the underworld blood skull hidden in his chest. For a moment, Captain Xia Ya's eyes flashed with a fresh luster as she reached out and touched the surface of the skull. Blood resonance. Nearly 1,000 books in the advanced reading room began to flip, and the words on the books emitted a crimson light. Immediately after, a red tide poured out. It completely flooded the library. Chapter 787. The red tide poured out from the book and gradually covered the two people's bodies. Duchess Shea's thoughts returned from the faraway underworld blood realm, and she realized the seriousness of the problem. She immediately drew a fong and a pentagram mark in the air with her index finger and absorbed all the blood in the reading room. However, the reading room had become completely different from before. Between the books were strands of bright red blood vessels, and even some organ tissues were mixed in. There were also crystals shining with blood on the surface of the wooden bookshelves. The flat tiles under their feet were completely peeled off and turned into an uneven fleshy floor. The librarian, who was originally in the reading room, was nowhere to be seen. Only Han Dong and Captain Shea, who were affected by the resonance, were left. Under Han Dong's perception, the entire library was emitting a strange blood-red aura. His perception was also limited to the library and could not reach the outside. It was as if the library was isolated. Duchess Shea stared at the scene in front of her and said in a low voice, "Destiny interference." I didn't expect that just by touching it, it would produce such a strong resonance. Destiny interference. Captain Shea, what do you mean? This treasure of yours has a certain level of divinity, a unique divinity that comes from high-level destiny. Even if you take this treasure out of the destiny space, it will still be connected to the other world. Because of some of my abilities, it resonated deeply with this item. This caused the underworld blood plane to interfere with the space we are in, creating a moment of mixing. It created a sealed, independent space. We need to find the exit as soon as possible. As time passes, we will be further and further away from reality. As for the damaged treasure in your hand, let's talk about it after we leave this place. In fact, Shea herself was also very shocked. Han Dong was only a low-level knight who had just graduated a year ago. In theory, it was impossible for him to obtain a treasure of this level. Right? I have to remind you. In addition to the mixing of the dimensions, the underworld blood life form related to this skull will also come here. This kind of high-level destiny space monster is definitely not something a low-level knight like you can deal with. Follow me, just as Captain Shea said this sentence. Buzz? The blood crystal inside the reading room began to tremble violently. Dense blood vessels grew from the roots of the crystal, and through the blood-forming secret text engraved inside the crystal, they weave the flesh. Using the hematopoietic secret text to construct the basic outline of life. With the crystal as the node, it was bordered by countless blood threads. In just 2 minutes, 39 blood crystals had been constructed. The strange blood threads connected to their bodies floated in the air in a strange manner. The blood vessels on their bodies could be long or short. As long as one of them touched another life form, it would instantly drain the life form of that life form. Moreover, the crystals in their bodies were the source of energy. In addition to providing rapid regeneration, they could also release various kinds of underworld blood magic. Or they would pounce on him like wild beasts. Or shoot out a large number of blood threads through his physical body. Or he used the blood threads floating on the surface of his body to construct the underworld blood array, summoning skulls burning with red flames to attack the two. At this moment, A long red whip slid out from the sleeve of Xia Ya's black robe. He twisted his wrist. The long whip lashed out. Pa! It was accompanied by a loud bang. In front of them were broken pages, broken crystals, and completely broken blood threads. All the attacks, crystal life forms, and all the facilities in the reading room were destroyed with just one move. This was the strength of a commander. These are just the lowest existences in the other world. Hurry up and follow me. However, Xiaoyu was still a little anxious. She was not afraid of the underworld blood life forms that interfered with space. It was just a matter of time and space. If they delayed for too long, they would deviate too much from reality. At that time, they would consume a large amount of blood energy to tear open space and establish a connection with the real world. This would cause Xiaoyu to be unable to go out in her peak state. It was precisely because of her anxiety that a fish escaped the net. A half-paralyzed monster quickly recognized the strength of its target. Therefore, it wrapped itself with blood threads and turned itself into a self-exploding blood egg. The egg had 4 long and swift legs at the bottom, and it immediately rushed toward the 2 of them. Just as Xiaoyu raised her free left hand and planned to use blood to suppress the explosion, a terrifying blood shadow flashed past her. The 100-eyed blood dog, which was more than 4 meters in size, opened its abyss-like mouth and covered the egg. The teeth made of nameless tentacles directly pierced the egg and disturbed the detonation source inside. Burp! As the blood dog let out a big burp, the self-exploding blood egg had become a part of its body. It was like a wild dog that had eaten an ostrich egg. It was quite satisfied, staring at the blood dog that was slowly retreating into Han Dong's back arm. A blood expert like Xiaoyu saw the problem at a glance. This is the result of tentacle isomerization. Is this the ability you took from the Mantis Demon in Scarlet Manor? Yes, you really have to thank Commander Hugo for such a pure Mantis Demon state. If it was fully publicized in the Holy City, at least 5 commanders would not recognize you. Hurry up, let's go. She pushed open the door of the reading room. The entire library was in a state of interference. The Penrose staircase, which was used to connect the various rooms of the library, became even more complicated due to the spatial interference. There was no pattern to speak of. At the center of the staircase, a giant heart was attracted from the Netherblood realm. Sensing the 2 people walking out of the reading room, many Netherblood life forms with suction cups on their bodies immediately crawled out of the heart's artery. Bang! Commander Xiaoyu waved her hand. Bright red splattered everywhere, and even the giant heart was completely torn apart. Commander Xiaoyu looked at the intricate staircase and could not help but complain. On the worst at space, the construction of the library itself contains the technology of overlapping space. Now that it has been interfered with by fate, there is no pattern to be found. Han Dong, who was following behind her, suggested in a low voice, Commander Xiaoyu, let me find the exit. This eye of mine, and some of my abilities happen to be related to space. Xiaoyu stared at the strange eye between Han Dong's eyebrows and said softly, Based on the viscosity of the blood here, you have about 3 minutes to find the exit. The interference this time was caused by my mistake. If you can successfully escape, I will take special care of you during the great expedition. If I can find the exit, can Commander Xiaoyu provide me with a method to repair this skull? There's not much time left. Hurry up and find it. Repairing this skull is not something you can consider at your current stage. However, if it's just a method to repair it, I can provide it to you. Okay. The moment the conversation ended, Han Dong jumped to the intersection of the staircase on the upper right. According to the observation of the little magic eye, the closest point to reality was behind this wall. Then a void tentacle that emitted the color of starlight grew from the palm of his hand and drew a spatial door on the wall. Commander Xiaoyu, the exit is here. Commander Xiaoyu tilted her head with a puzzled expression. On her head, there was a question mark formed by blood. Pattern. Chapter 788. Duchess Xia was very clear about Han Dong's uniqueness. His performance in the night conference was also quite outstanding. The experience in the library made her have a new view of Han Dong. He was more interesting than she expected. Exit, because the two were in a space created by the mixture of reality and fate. The library in reality was not affected. The scene that others saw was when Xiaoya reached out to touch the special necklace worn by Han Dong. The two immediately turned into blood and disappeared, because the exit was drawn by Han Dong through the void tentacles. Its corresponding position was also the high stone wall of the library. The moment they left the exit, the two fell at the same time. Because of the effect of crossing space, the two's brain was also in a state of stagnation. Plop. First, Han Dong fell heavily on the steps of the library's front door. Han Dong had just woken up when a light and soft body with a trace of fishy smell fell on his body. This scene was also coincidentally seen by the library staff passing by. In addition, guild leader Xiaoya did not wear a hood. Her identity was also exposed. Then, there were some rumors about guild leader Xiaoya seducing young boys in the library. But the person involved was Xiaoya, the terrifying duchess. After a while, no one dared to mention it again. Scarlet Knights. It was also a knight group with a special position, originating from the Blood Clan bloodline, which was quite popular in the Fate realm. Most of the knights in the Behemoth Knights were mixed with the blood of beasts. Some of the knights in the Wind Knights and Sorcerer Knights were mixed with the blood of elves. Most of the knights in the Hell Knights were mixed with the blood of demons. Wait a minute. Bloodline could be exchanged with points, or in some Fate events, completing hidden missions, contacting core NPCs, or through their own awakening to change their personality. The introduction of Bloodline was mostly for buffs. Take the previous example. The blood of beasts could give the knights the advantages of beasts, mostly reflected in the ability to move. The blood of elves could improve the senses and elemental affinity, making the individual better at aiming and casting magic, but the physical body would be weakened to a certain extent. The blood of demons gave the individual stronger strength, defense, and adaptability to harsh environments, but the individual was more easily irritable and had a certain tendency to be abused. However, in the Destiny realm, which was based on horror culture, there was no lack of Blood Clan. Obtaining the corresponding bloodline of the Blood Clan could turn the individual into the legendary vampire and inherit the corresponding characteristics. Although the blood breeds were divided into different types, as long as they were blood breeds, they all had the same characteristics that were suitable for fighting outside the city. 1. Like to be active at night. 2. It can absorb blood to replenish any energy and heal injuries. Just these two commonalities of vampires were enough to win the favor of many knights. Compared to ordinary knights, knights with vampire bloodlines would suffer much less pressure in the Evernight environment. Moreover, they could reduce the pressure by satisfying their bloodlust. Hence, the formation of the Scarlet Knights was in line with the pressure of the Evernight environment. The number of knights within it could also be ranked in the top 3 of the 13 knight regiments. The first Scarlet Knights were used as a vanguard by the Holy City because of their outstanding ability to move at night and resist pressure. But as Duchess Shea Cromwell became the head, it gradually changed the entire Holy City's view of the Scarlet Knights. Captain Shea's bloodline seemed to be different from ordinary blood breeds. In addition to her powerful vampire ability, she also had a powerful medical skill. Perhaps it was related to her interest in surgery. As the Duchess became the head of the regiment, in the name of the Scarlet Knights, many hospitals were built in the Holy City. At the same time, they began to deliberately cultivate some knights who focused on medical treatment in the Knights Regiment. They could use advanced surgery and blood replenishment to quickly treat the injured. Some high-ranking Scarlet Knights could even achieve ultra-fast regeneration of broken limbs. In this way, the position of the Scarlet Knights slowly changed from a vanguard to a knight regiment that focused on auxiliary medical treatment. In general expedition activities, they cooperated with the Holy Knights. Let the nuns first carry out the necessary purification of injured individuals, and then immediately carry out effective treatment. According to the statistics, 5 years after Captain Shea became the head of the regiment, the death rate of knights and trainee knights dropped significantly. When everyone saw some scarlet knights in white coats, they would politely add the suffix of doctor. Scarlet Knights, St. Teresa's Central Hospital, Dean's Office. Captain Shea, who was wearing a white coat, a corset, and a short skirt, was crossing her long legs and staring at Han Dong across the desk and the skull necklace on her chest. There are two ways I can think of to repair this damaged skull that contains divinity. Captain Shea bit her finger. Through a special sensing method, she determined the higher plane of destiny corresponding to the skull, and the blood automatically arranged the corresponding English letters on the table. Cairn, Cane World. 1. Enter the original world. Go to the base of the Blood Oathkeeper. Find the ritual book about resurrecting Loghorn. Collect the corresponding resurrection materials, and use the necklace as the core medium to resurrect this demigod in Cane World. And kill it and peel off the complete skull. Resurrect and then kill it, and it's still a demigod? Is there any other way? 2. Find the blood god outside the city. He should have a way to restore the skull. I can only think of these two methods. After all, this level of treasure is far from what a grade 2 knight like you can have. Han Dong also laughed awkwardly. The two methods were basically impossible for him at this stage. Han Dong, who killed and took the Scarlet Manor, if he found Count Original Boss, the blood god outside the city, he would probably be killed in a few minutes. By the way, did you really get such a treasure in the first real Destiny experience? Yes, the chain event that started during the Apprentice Knight period. Because I achieved perfect ending, the system gave me the equipment from the treasure chest. How perfect is it? The system said 100%. It's a pity that you didn't choose to join the Scarlet Knights. Forget it. Anyway, that scumbag Malone couldn't win you over. I mean what I say. I'll take care of you during the big expedition. If you need anything, just ask me directly. Don't go to Malone. Understood, Captain Shea. Tomorrow, the council will gather all the expedition members at the top of the Holy City to carry out the final division. You can stay here today. I have some things about the Scarlet Manor and the Blood Dog's ability that I want to know. Tomorrow, we'll go together. Chapter 789. St. Ophir's Central Hospital. Late at night, after finishing their work, the Scarlet Doctors and some external nurses left the hospital. They found that the director's office, which should have been empty, was lit up in the middle of the night. They could even hear the laughter of the Duchess, the director, coming from the office. It was this kind of laughter with a special frequency and the delicious smell of blood in the room that attracted a large number of vampire bats. They hung neatly at the edge of the hospital. These vampire bats were not wild. They were kept in captivity by the hospital in the cave behind the hospital as active blood bags. The blood stored in the bats could maintain the highest activity and temperature for a long time. Under the control of the Scarlet Doctors, the bats could directly inject blood into the patients who had lost blood. It was quite convenient. It's strange. Usually, the director would have left by this time. There were rules within the Scarlet Knights. As long as they were in the hospital area of the Holy City, they had to address their leader as the director. Maybe the great expedition is approaching. She can no longer stay in the Holy City so leisurely. The director should have invited a good friend to drink and chat in the office to make the final preparations. What kind of person can talk with our leader for a whole night? Who in the Holy City doesn't know the name of the terrifying Duchess? Even the captain can't get along with Leader Xia like this. Could it be Leader Malone? Rumor has it that when Leader Malone was still studying in the Knight Academy, he was 1 year older than the director. Because of Leader Malone's impulsive personality, he was often injured in various missions. The director happened to be able to provide effective surgery and sufficient and gentle blood supply. Although they are 1 year apart, the two of them have formed a special team. At this time, another Scarlet Doctor said, "However, I heard that after they were promoted to knights, they gradually became estranged due to some things. Their relationship didn't develop smoothly. Later, because Leader Malone went to hell to further his studies for decades, their relationship gradually faded." Then who do you think it is? I don't know. Don't think about it. Knowing too much will kill you. No one in the hospital could stay with Leader Xiaya. Who was it? In fact, even the protagonist of the incident, Han Dong, didn't expect things to develop like this. In the luxuriously decorated office, the fire in the fireplace was burning fiercely. The dean's desk had been turned into a wine table, and the documents that were originally placed on the table had been wantonly thrown to the ground. Duchess of Terror, Mother of Blood, founder and president of the Red Cross Hospital Chain Hospital, commander of the Scarlet Knights. Shea Cromwell, who had all these weighty titles, was sitting at her desk without her usual dignified image at this moment. He held the wine bottle with one hand and rested the other on his thigh. She took off her leather shoes, revealing her feet that were fairer and more tender than a young girl's. His face was flushed from drinking too much, and his bright eyes were constantly flashing with an expression of interest. "Ha ha! You actually joined forces with Lucius to launch a small-scale war against Scarlet Mountain Villa? And then, how did you welcome the Baron's troops from Scarlet Mountain Villa? How did he defeat Scarlet Count? Hurry up and tell me. Don't leave me hanging." The reason why Shea was so happy was because Han Dong told her the story of Journey to the Aragad Mountains and Scarlet Battle in a storyteller's way. Whenever he heard something interesting, Han Dong would deliberately pause for a while, which also made Shea more curious about the next plot. From time to time, she would gently kick Han Dong's arm with her little feet. Of course, since it was a storytelling, Han Dong made a lot of omissions and substitutions. He concealed his identity as a lord and said that the assistance of the Crowmen was due to his crow physique and Mr. Black and White's help. The land deed war was also directly omitted and replaced with ordinary war conflicts. The more Shea listened, the more excited she became, and she drank without restraint. Although she was skeptical about some details of the war, Shea only listened to it as a story, as long as it was satisfying enough. But when Han Dong talked about his war plan, Shea listened too seriously and put herself in his shoes, and for a moment, she couldn't hold it in. Puff! She spat out a mouthful of wine. "What? You used the cover provided by the Crowmen to bypass the Baron's troops, and without any assistance, you arrived at the Scarlet Manor alone to face the mature hybrid demon? That kid Lucius, didn't he come with you?" "Yes. Lucius joined forces with the Crowmen and other ground troops to confront the Baron's troops. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for me to have the opportunity to go deep into the enemy's rear." How can you be sure that the hybrid demon won't use the power of the manor to target you, and instead choose to fight you alone? Also, where did you get the confidence to fight the mature hybrid demon at the seed-breaking stage? Such a crazy and reckless battle even reminded Shea of Malone. Malone was also at the apprentice knight stage, and regardless of the difference in level, he forcefully killed the hybrid demon. Duel is based on Scarlet Count's absolute self-esteem. "I'm just an apprentice knight. If he still needs to use other means to deal with me, it's too much. And I have special means to deal with blood, so I'm still very confident in dealing with Count." At this moment, Count, who felt that his self-esteem had been severely damaged, couldn't hold it in anymore. In his opinion, in Han Dong's story, he was a brainless villain. He forcefully crossed the consciousness layer and constructed a blood dog on the surface of Han Dong's right arm. Then, from the depths of the blood dog's mouth, a bloody human head wearing cone-shaped eye protection slowly emerged and spoke. "Don't listen to his nonsense. How can this kid beat me? Count could easily crush him to death." Who knew that at the last moment, this kid actually cheated and established a connection with the distant crow god through some kind of ritual, borrowing a death power that can restrain blood. The hybrid demon's consciousness is preserved. Staring at Count's head and the blood dog, the drunk Shea was mostly sober. Since Count's consciousness ran out, Han Dong also conveniently explained that he deliberately preserved Count's consciousness at the seed-breaking stage. The main purpose was to borrow the ability of Count's tentacles. As for Count's network hidden in the depths of the manor, of course, it was kept secret. Shea stared at the Scarlet Count in the blood dog's mouth and whispered, Only someone with a pollution immunity physique like yours would dare to do such a crazy thing. Since she accepted the setting of Count's consciousness. The next story was told in a two-man show way. Shea listened and laughed, slapping her thighs with her hands. Count slowly became familiar with her. When the story of the Scarlet Battle was finished, Count took the opportunity to ask this high-ranking commander in the Holy City about something that Count was very concerned about. Hey, is there a knight in the Holy City with superb swordsmanship and proficient in holy magic? Olivia Hall. The one that Count was talking about was the female knight who once pierced his body with a holy sword. This sword caused Count to be seriously injured and even wander between death for a long time. As a result, she obtained a similar ability of the holy sword. This name, the Hall family? Chapter 790. The first head of the Hall family should be called Fisket Hall. He was the first deputy head of the Holy Knights and was known as the Silver Sword. At the time when there were not many knights, this deputy head belonged to the rare Holy Knights. After the family was established, they used a unique Holy Swordsman system to strictly cultivate their descendants. Because of the Holy Light system mixed in their bloodline, coupled with the family's inherited swordsmanship, the Hall family has always been sending high-quality knights to the Holy Knights, mainly the Holy Knights and the Lionheart Knights. As for the Olivia Hall you speak of, I'm sorry. Either she's not an elite, or she's already dead. At least, I don't know this knight. The Count, whose head was in the blood dog's mouth, said with a serious face, "No way. How can the people I value not be elites? There must be a problem." At that time, the knights who came to find me were all dead. She fought until the last moment and pierced my body with the holy sword. Thinking back, at that time, in addition to dealing with me, she also had to deal with many blood descendants at the same time. Her body was deeply contaminated, and with serious injuries all over her body, it was difficult for her to survive. Oh, she's dead. I naturally don't know a dead knight. Count thought until here and quickly said, since she's a descendant of a big family, maybe the remains will be buried in a special cemetery in the Holy City. Nicholas, when the time comes, go to the Hall family and ask. She's already dead. What else do you want to do? Even if it's the remains, I still have to find them. Do you want me to tell you that the reason why I betrayed the original host was because I met Olivia? Since her holy sword pierced my body, my philosophy and ability system have undergone a certain change. Nicholas, you fought with me one-on-one. You know that as a hybrid demon, I ignored the rejection of attributes and used the true silver holy sword, right? Find her remains, or go deep into her family. Maybe it will make me more perfect. Why didn't you say so earlier? You didn't ask. Besides, you're not even willing to lend me your body for a few days. Why should I take the initiative to talk about this? Han Dong also drank a little too much and directly quarreled with Count. This was the first time Commander Xia had seen something like this. The knight was actually arguing with the hybrid demon in his body. Ha, let's fight. Xia was also completely drunk. She didn't care about the matter at all. While waving the wine bottle in his hand, he hoped that the Scarlet Earl could separate himself and fight with Han Dong, restoring the theater battle in the story. All right. If there's a chance during the expedition, I'll lend you my body for a while. Is that okay? Han Dong took a step back. Compared to the dispute, the matter at hand was more important. Intuition told Han Dong that if he could trace the origin of the sacred sword, he might be able to find a breakthrough point. Perhaps he could add another trump card to Han Dong's close combat ability. Commander Shea, after the division allocation, tomorrow, will we immediately begin the expedition? There should be a short-term adjustment of the division. It might start immediately, or it might wait a day or two. Why don't you go and ask now? I'll personally take you there as a reward for your company tonight. I haven't been so happy in a long time. Is it appropriate to disturb others so late at night? For a family that focuses on training nights, some of the family members must be training all night. Moreover, night training is often more useful than day training. She left as soon as she said so. In fact, Xiaoyu was also very curious. Logically speaking, This kind of sacred sword knight's attributes absolutely restrain the hybrid demons outside the city. Moreover, just like some settings in the movies, the sacred light also had a certain lethality to vampires. Scarlet Count was a hybrid demon with the attribute of a blood clan. In a situation where he was seriously injured and even almost died, he actually controlled the power of the sacred sword and even had the thought of betraying the king in his heart. This matter was worthy of Xia Ye's investigation. She changed into a black coat with a hood. She stepped on a pair of boots with studs. Before leaving, she didn't forget to slide her finger between her lips, making her lips reveal a strange bright red color. She held Han Dong's hand and directly jumped out of the window. In the night, a pair of transparent blood-red giant bat wings formed on Xia Ye's back, carrying the two of them gently to the ground. At the same time, a large number of vampire bats gathered in front of the two of them. They gathered to form a living carriage. Hall family, a high noble, located on the third floor of the sacred city. At night, the continuous sound of swords striking could be heard from the huge mansion. The current head of the family, Barkle Hall, inspected the family's juniors who were training and was about to return to the bedroom to rest. Suddenly, he saw the old butler with a face full of panic. Master, Duchess Xia Cromwell is here to visit. What? The sleepiness that hovered in Barkle's head completely dissipated. Even he, an elite knight, would break out in a cold sweat when he mentioned Xiaya's name. Why is the terrifying Duchess looking for our family in the middle of the night? Speaking of which, we didn't offend the Scarlet Knights. Did one of the family's juniors cause trouble in the Red Cross hospital? We can't let the Duchess wait for too long. I'll go and greet her first. Hurry and prepare some good wine to entertain the Duchess. Barkle Hall was also an elite knight in the Lionheart Knights. He hurriedly put on the shiny knight's armor and personally greeted her. The Duchess has personally come to visit. I've already ordered the butler to prepare 80-year-old wine from the Red Mountain Village. Please come in. I'll just take 2 bottles with me later. I don't need a drink now. Burp. This time, I'm here to ask about Olivia Hall. Olivia? I wonder why the Duchess is looking for my dead sister. When the name was mentioned, Barkle's expression became more serious. My friend was once Olivia's comrade. Due to serious injuries and contamination, she has been locked in the observation area deep in the hospital. Today, she is discharged from the hospital and wants to mourn for her former comrade. Sister's comrade? Sister's remains were sent back by the knights at that time and buried in the family tomb. Follow me. From the Barkle family's point of view, a person of Commander Xiaya's status would naturally not lie. The moment he stepped into the family tomb, Count in his body felt something. At the same time, Han Dong felt a tingling sensation on his wrist. There was once a silver cross on Count's wrist. It seemed that the feeling was transmitted to Han Dong because he was about to meet an old friend. Chapter 791. The tingling sensation from his wrist couldn't be eliminated by shielding his nerves. This pain came from the Holy Sword. It showed that the ability of the Holy Sword that Count acquired was transferred to Han Dong to a certain extent. Generally speaking, knights broke the seed of evil outside the city by borrowing the chaotic aura in their body to break through the seed coat. The influence and inheritance of the ability generally did not exceed 30%. But Han Dong absorbed a matured hybrid demon and also actively retained Count's consciousness. With the special compatibility of the faceless skull, it was naturally different. After adapting to the tingling sensation on his wrist, Han Dong, wrapped in the bird's beak coat, made a middle-aged man's voice through disguise. That year, if Olivia didn't pierce the body of the abominable blood with the Holy Sword, I wouldn't have survived if I was a little stronger at that time. Maybe everyone could have survived. His words were full of regret and self-blame, showing his acting talent to the fullest. This sentence also directly caused the head of the house, Barkle, to sigh and began to slowly reveal his inner thoughts. Sister's talent and strength are above mine. In the case where the Holy Sword was almost ineffective against humans, Sister used pure swordsmanship to achieve the ninth place in the night conference. Moreover, Sister's holy sword is also the most special and unique Sai. Listening to the head of the house, Han Dong was a little puzzled. It was as if the holy sword itself was not a combination of swordsmanship and sacred magic, but a special ability mixed in the blood. Looking for an opportunity, Han Dong continued to ask, "Isn't the holy sword a combination of sacred attributes and swordsmanship?" "No. Every member of our Hall family, whether direct or collateral, has an ancient bloodline flowing in their veins. It is a curse that cannot be removed, but it is also a gift that can help us survive in the Evernight world." When he heard this, Han Dong was not the only one interested. Even Commander Xia was intrigued. The blood in the destiny space? It can be said that the family chooses to keep the matter of the bloodline a secret. However, since Commander Xia will be going to battle as the 4th General tomorrow, and you're also my sister's comrade, I won't hide it. The source of the blood of the sacred sword is our family's ancestor, the first vice-captain of the Holy Knights, Fisket Hall. According to the records left behind by the ancestors, the old ancestor began to practice the sacred swordsmanship on his own. After becoming an official knight, he entered a large world that accommodated more than 10 teams of fate. Because he violated a taboo, he fell into a forbidden area called the Tomb of the Saint. After passing through layers upon layers of traps, he killed the white monster that existed in the tomb. They found a special secret chamber at the bottom of the tomb. The walls were engraved with ancient characters, and in the exquisite coffin lay a corpse that had been dead for hundreds of years, but still looked fresh. Most of the words on the walls of the ancient tomb were missing. It was impossible to know the origin of the corpse. He could only roughly decipher a piece of information. If he wanted to leave the tomb, he had to select a person to undergo the blood exchange ceremony. Through the ancient device in the secret chamber, all the blood in the corpse would be transfused into the individual. The danger was unknown. It was also unknown if the blood exchange would cause the consciousness to be seized. Considering that the tomb was mixed with a strange holy aura, as well as various words related to holiness, the old ancestor who had the holy attribute at that time was also the best candidate. In a situation where he could not leave the tomb, the old ancestor did not care about the consequences and stood out decisively. The blood exchange was successful. After the old ancestor returned to the holy city, his strength increased dramatically in a short period of time, and even sat on the vice-captain's position 10 years later. Although it may seem impressive to outsiders, but our family is very clear. The sacred blood that exists in the old ancestor's body is actually an endless curse. The council who knew about the situation also issued a ban on our family, forbidding us from spreading this bloodline outside, only allowing it to develop within the family. Blood exchange, the key words were given, and the mystery was solved. Perhaps it was because Count had sucked the blood of the female knight, or perhaps it was because the female knight condensed the most powerful holy sword at the last moment and pierced into Count's body, and directly fused with Count's blood because of the sacred blood. The family head continued. This kind of blood brings us endless pain. As long as we are not able to kill evil creatures for a period of time, the sacred blood will stimulate our senses and cause severe pain all over our body. This means that the members of our family have no other choice but to embark on the path of a knight and engage in endless battles with the hybrid demons. On top of that, not all of the descendants could carry the holy blood. Premature death is the most common thing in our family. The family had explained until here. Count's consciousness in Han Dong's body jumped out. TC, how come this Count doesn't have these side effects? But because of the mixing of the sacred blood, this Count's consciousness got rid of the original owner's absolute control. In the end, it's because their understanding and control of blood is insufficient. Han Dong immediately followed up. Then why did you pierce your wrist with a cross to seal this ability? It still hurts, right? Get lost. In this way, Han Dong needed to think carefully. The so-called sacred blood and sacred sword could indeed increase one's strength, and it could also be used to deal with the hybrid demons outside the city. However, Han Dong did not want to carry a burden that he could not unload. Let's take a look first. At the bottom of the family tomb, in a sealed tomb, he saw a stone corpse cabinet with the name Olivia Hall. Count's consciousness in his body had a strong reaction, constantly urging Han Dong to do something. Some clansmen with high-purity blood of the Holy Sword, flowing in their bodies, won't rot after they die. Sister is one of them. Just as the family head stood in front of the corpse cabinet, his eyes were wet. The scene of his sister taking care of him in the past immediately emerged. At this moment, a drop of blood secretly entered the back of the family head's neck. Commander Shea had used a blood control method to make this elite knight completely faint. Nicholas, start your work. Is this really okay? Han Dong was a very upright person. He could not desecrate a corpse without the consent of the family. Listening to their description, the Hall family has obviously fallen into an unknown blood curse. If my senses are not wrong, Olivia Hall, who was buried here as a corpse, has not truly died. Her soul is still trapped in the blood. What you need to do is to help her escape. This is a good thing. Moreover, I also want to see what will happen next. Bringing you here in the middle of the night has wasted my precious time. Hurry up and get to work. All right. In fact, Han Dong himself was a little impatient. The pain in his wrist had reached its limit. When he pulled out the corpse cabinet, a blonde female corpse that was almost no different from a living person appeared in front of him. The blood in her body also flowed normally. Miss Jane. For some reason, Han Dong suddenly thought of an old friend. At this moment, under Count's urging and urging, Han Dong slowly placed his right wrist on it. For a moment, the blood flowing in the female corpse's body like silk threads slowly drilled out from the pores and gathered toward Han Dong's right wrist. It was slowly engraving a bright red cross. The amount of holy blood seemed to be insufficient. Seeing this scene, Commander Shea smiled. If you want to do a good deed, you have to do it thoroughly. Let me help you. She raised her hand. All the corpse cabinets in the Hall family's underground tomb were removed. The holy blood flowing in all the corpses gathered together. Some of the corpses whose holy blood components were sucked out actually showed a relieved smile and turned into old, dried corpses in a short time. Holy blood injection detected. Right arm, ghoul arm, G-virus transformation is evolving. The holy blood flowing from the right wrist could not quickly occupy the body as usual. Instead, it showed a suppressed state and was limited to the right arm. The thing that suppressed the blood was Han Dong's faceless head. Chapter 792. Sacred Blood Corpse Arm, G-virus infection. Just as Han Dong was releasing the members of the Hall family from the underground tomb, the Hall family, a perfect holy cross imprint was formed on Han Dong's right wrist. The entire right arm had undergone a qualitative change. So far, the original ghoul arm, green quality, had undergone two complete evolutions. The first time, because of the G-virus infection, it was upgraded from green quality to blue quality. The second time was now. Because of the infusion of sacred blood, it was upgraded from blue quality to purple quality, the same level as the left arm. It was because the ghoul arm had such an evolutionary characteristic that Han Dong had kept it. It was just that Han Dong never thought that there would be such an opportunity on the last day of the great expedition. Then again, all of this was thanks to Commander Xiaya. If it wasn't for the drunken chat that led Count to reveal the sacred sword, if Commander Xiaya didn't personally lead him to the Hall family and pull out all the corpses in the stone cabinet at the critical moment, Han Dong wouldn't have been able to achieve such a perfect upgrade. The moment the Holy Cross imprint was formed, the black vortex on the torso was also rotating slightly, which meant that Han Dong had perfectly adapted to the newly advanced arm. With a wave of his hand, whoosh, accompanied by the flow of blood, a true silver sacred sword appeared in Han Dong's palm. The image of a close combat mage that was originally preset in his mind became more perfect. His close combat ability had another powerful trump card. Moreover, Han Dong would also inquire about the secret of the sacred blood through the Black Tower in the future. However, compared to a normal sacred sword, the sword in Han Dong's hand was a little strange the next day. The most important division of the army and the departure ceremony of the great expedition was about to be carried out on the third floor of the Holy City, between the thrones. Between the thrones, the front of the eternal castle of the royal family. The huge square, surrounded by white Roman pillars, could accommodate 10,000 people at the same time. The eternal city, Nutna, operated under the monarch's council system. The king was only a symbolic leader of the country and had no real power. His duties were mostly ceremonial. However, the royal family in the Holy City was not only a symbol of spirit and etiquette, but also a symbol of strength. Even some of the leaders of the Knight Corps were not fully aware of the true power of the royal family. The most familiar one was the Imperial Army that belonged to the royal family. When a member of the Knight Regiment revealed a unique potential in a certain action, they may secretly receive an invitation from the Imperial Army. For example, Abel Ryan, who had revealed the physique of the Dragon Clan. It was rumored that the 13 Knights were the exposed combat power of the Sacred City. However, the Sacred City still retained a portion of its internal combat power to deal with disasters that could cause the fall of the Sacred City. This portion of combat power was hidden within the royal family. Currently, after a good rest, the knights who were full of energy and in perfect condition were rushing to between the thrones from different regions. One commander and 4 generals would also gather in Eternal Castle ahead of time. The great demon commander arrived at the castle early in the morning and was personally received by the Imperial Guard. The aura emanating from the great demon's body leaned towards neutral. It was neither the righteousness of the knights nor the evilness of the hybrid demons. Instead, it was a kind of endless magic energy. Then, Grim Reaper and Malone arrived together. The two of them were not only opponents, but also best friends. They represented the extreme combat power of the Sacred City and were the most direct force to deal with the old king. In particular, the king's aura emanating from Malone's body even made the Imperial Guard feel as if they were in the scorched earth of hell. However, the Imperial Guard did not show any signs of wavering on the surface. As expected of the Imperial Guard, their quality is indeed different. Not long after the two of them arrived, along with the formation of a light blue spatial array on the ground, the 188-year-old Archmage, Jeros Midiome, arrived. Because of his seniority, even the Great Demon and Grim Reaper saluted the old man at the first moment. Only Malone stepped forward and reached out to pat the old man's skinny body. "Old man, your body is not bad. It seems that you can still live for another 100 years. Do you want to consider mixing into the bloodline of the infernal demons? With your rank, you might be able to get the same Demon King bloodline as me. By then, it won't be a problem for you to live for another 1,000 years. Malone, mind your manners," Grim Reaper quickly reminded him. "Ha! It's fine, it's fine. The two of you are still the same as before. I'm already very satisfied that this body of mine can persevere and fight side by side with the two of you." Jeros used to be the principal of the Knight Academy. He had watched Malone and Grim Reaper grow up. Now that they could stand on the same platform and fight together, he was quite satisfied. There was still an hour before the start of the conference. Logically speaking, the leading figures should be gathered here, but there was one person missing. As the commander-in-chief, the great demon tore open a mouth on his gelatinous face without a mouth. "Is Shea Cromwell not here yet?" Malone also felt a little puzzled. "Strange. Shea should be more punctual than me. In the past, when we worked together, she always arrived early. Could she have drunk too much last night? I remember that she used to drink the day before some major operation to relax herself before." Grim Reaper looked at his pocket watch and directly contacted Shea through the clockwork device. The moment the call was connected, a slightly panting voice came from the other end. "Huff, Huff, I have something to do here, so I didn't pay attention to the time. I'll be there in 10 minutes at the latest." After saying that, she hung up. St. Teresa's Central Hospital, in a secret cave used to confine vampire bats. Han Dong, whose whole body was covered in sweat, was sitting on a stone bench, drinking a lot of water to restore his physical strength. He was in a state where he was about to be squeezed and collapsed. And standing not far in front of Han Dong was Commander Shea, who was holding a bright red long whip. She had obtained a brand new holy blood from the Hall family last night. With the help of alcohol and interest, Commander Shea requested to have a one-on-one sparring session with Han Dong. At the same time, she also promised Han Dong that she would not use her blood level to suppress him during the sparring session, nor would she use any secret techniques. It was purely a close combat sparring session. The commander would personally spar with him. There are not many opportunities like this. Although they might be fighting tomorrow, Han Dong still agreed. This sparring session could not be stopped at all. As Han Dong's body revealed one new ability after another, Shea also became more and more interested, so much so that she directly skipped the time for the commanders to gather. Oh no, I forgot the time. Our generals have to gather at the Eternal Castle an hour in advance. Commander Shea, why don't you go first? I'll follow you later. I also said that I'll take you with me. Keep the key to the office for me first. Later, go to my office directly to clean up your body, and use my name to eat something good in the hospital to replenish your body. Come find me during the Great Expedition. Remember to come find me more often. Don't go find Malone. Got it. Chapter 793. This whip really hurts. If it was in the past, my body wouldn't have been able to withstand it. Leaning against the stone wall, Han Dong walked out of the back cave. But when he recalled the experience the night before, the harvest was comparable to months of hard work, especially the Holy Cross branded on his right wrist. There's still an hour left before the meeting. I'll borrow Commander Xiaoya's office to rest. If the expedition starts without rest, my mental state won't be able to keep up. With the key card, Han Dong could walk freely in the hospital headquarters. Of course, to avoid some gossip, Han Dong disguised himself as a doctor with a bird's beak. He went to Commander Xiaoya's office as quickly as possible and used the internal private bathroom to wash away his sweat and stains. Why can't I get rid of this fragrance? Is it Commander Xiaoya's special shower gel? Forget it. Let's go to Between the Thrones. Han Dong, who was walking in the corridor, was about to leave the hospital. A familiar smell entered his nostrils, and Han Dong immediately looked downstairs. The other party also looked up from the bottom at the same time. Nicholas, why are you here? Even if Han Dong was wearing an airtight suit, he was still seen through at a glance. Standing in the hospital lobby was Blood Knight, Lucius, who fought side by side with Han Dong and was not weaker than him. Compared to his usual armor, Lucius wore a white coat today and seemed to work in the hospital. I was looking for Commander Xiaoya for something. It should be about your necklace, right? Lucius had seen the underworld blood skull in the last investigation mission. It was reasonable for Commander Xiaoya to notice such a special item. Yes. Senior, do you work here? The Scarlet Knights are required to intern at the various Red Cross hospitals for a period of time. Moreover, surgery also helps me control the fine details of the blade. I've always been under Second Corporal Dr. Langdon Kazdanov. Today, I'm just here to hand over the final work. After all, the expedition is about to start. Wait for me for a while, we'll go together. Okay, he put on the dark red light armor again. The two of them had worked together several times and were both shareholders of Scarlet Mountain Villa. So Lucius didn't regard himself as an outsider and placed his arm on Han Dong's shoulder. However, because of his closeness, Lucius smelled a scent. It was the scent of guild leader Xiaoya. You seem to have a good relationship with Commander Xiaoya? Han Dong hurriedly scratched his head and laughed foolishly. Haha, it's okay. Because of this equipment, Commander Xia, you personally taught me for a long time last night. You'd better be careful. The title Duchess of Terror isn't for nothing. Got it, Senior Lucius. Outside the hospital, the Black War wheel carriage belonging to Lucius's team was already waiting at the door. Senior Zhen and Senior Luanze were already waiting in the carriage. Draw the curtain of the carriage. Let's get down to business. Nicholas, can Scarlet Mountain Villa move with us? Indeed, I can carry it with me, but there are still certain restrictions. Moving title deed is a type of title deed. It can be unfolded at will in the general area outside the city for us to enter and exit. But if we are in other areas covered by the title deed, we won't be able to unfold it as we wish. Lucius nodded. It's quite good to be able to do this. Don't worry. If you encounter some dangerous situation that you can't resist, don't worry. Senior Lucius, you can lead Senior Jean and Student Lindsay to the manor to avoid danger by relying on your identity as the third signatory. If we really encounter a situation that can lead to the defeat of the entire expeditionary army, I will do my best to move the expeditionary army to the manor. Lucius shook his index finger and whispered, No, that's not what I want to ask. If we encounter a danger that even the commander can't deal with, it's useless for us to hide. Nicholas, what I want to know is, you should have prepared a stronger manor guard, right? Han Dong faintly understood the purpose of Lucius's question. Yes, compared to the Scarlet War, we have accumulated more troops, and the lowest level soldiers have received technical support and optimized training. There are also more soldiers than before. Ha ha ha, I knew it. Kid, your motive for participating in the Great Expedition is definitely not pure. Do you want to continue the title deed war during the Great Expedition? When the time comes as the third signatory, I will also need to participate in the war, right? Han Dong did not hide it. I do have this idea, but Senior Lucius, don't worry. I will not initiate a title deed war that I am not confident in. Once the war is won, Senior Lucius will also receive the corresponding spoils of war. Don't go too crazy. Think about the big picture. Got it. Outside the throne room, a large number of carriages belonging to various expeditionary army squads were parked here. After Han Dong alighted, he met up with his squad members and walked into the magnificent square. There were more than 2,000 official knights gathered here, and this did not include the special forces that have been developed in the past year. At least, Han Dong did not see Knight Wino Celeste combat none. Noon, at the front of the throne room, above the 100-meter-tall Eternal Castle. The corresponding eagle-eyed bronze door on the bird's eye view slowly opened from the inside. 1 general and 4 generals. Stepping into the bird's eye view with the posture of a king, he looked down at all the expeditionary knights. The great demon captain standing at the front slowly opened his gelatinous white mouth, and a low and loud voice covered the whole square. Before the great expedition officially begins. Based on each knight's strength, attributes, and related characteristics, you will be organized into 4 different legions by squads. During the expedition, there are no requirements for the different legions. Squads are allowed to move freely within the legions. Now, please line up according to the legions you belong to. As the words fell, the knights gathered here all received the message. The clockwork device worn by Han Dong showed the number 4 through the folding of the copper plate. We belong to the 4th Legion, the Legion under Commander Shea. Did the higher-ups consider that we are still new knights and try to reduce our danger during the expedition? This is good. Lucius and the others are also in the 4th Legion, so it will be easier to deal with unexpected situations. Just as all the knights received the Legion's message and finished lining up. Rumble. The heavy sound of gears rotating and a violent vibration came from the soles of their feet. The underground machinery hidden in the throne room was operating at high power. Thick steam rose from the ground. A sealed cylindrical metal container rose in front of each knight. Inside it was the power armor prepared by the employer for the expeditionary army. Chapter 794. The volume of the cylindrical metal container was larger than the corresponding knight's body. What was stored inside was the power armor customized by the Steam City based on the basic information of each knight. Inside the Raven Whisper team, corresponding containers rose in front of Demps, Abel, Wen Li, and Mia. Because of the Behemoth Knight's attempt to equip the Wolves of Evernight with special armor, Abel was also looking forward to the armor he was about to receive. Abel also heard from a few teachers that his grandfather seemed to have worked on armor in private. This kind of power armor integrated with technology could not be measured by fake quality. This kind of armor integrated with many characteristics could improve the marching ability of the expeditionary force, improve the overall combat effect, and minimize the consumption of physical energy. However, there was nothing in front of Han Dong. "Nicholas, where's your armor?" Abel asked. "I went to the Steam City in advance and got the armor in advance." "Steam City? How did you get in? Isn't it strictly forbidden for outsiders to enter?" Abel was a little surprised. Even he had not been to the Steam City. After all, Commander Keeman was a conservative who pursued the wild power of nature. He had a certain prejudice against the Steam Knights who voluntarily abandoned their bodies in nature. "I have a private partnership with Mr. Newton." Hearing the name Newton, Abel's beast ears hidden in his hair quickly stood up. "Congreve Newton. Nicholas, how can you be in contact with just anyone? This is the automaton faith." "Forget it. I'm used to it." Abel was a second-generation official who had lived in the Knights since he was young. He was quite familiar with the big shots in the Knights. Some of the deputy commanders in the 13 Knights had actually reached the commander level and were willing to be adjutants due to some personal reasons. For example, Mr. Black and White of the Knights of Plague and Stalvin of the Knights of Destiny. Newton was a dangerous person in Abel's mind. Commander Keeman also said that Abel should avoid contact with the Steam Knights as much as possible, especially this Newton, the founder of the automaton faith. As the cylindrical container rose, the voice of the great demon captain sounded again. "The power armor is funded directly by the Council and given to the City of Steam to create the most advanced mechanical and steam power technology for each expedition knight. The power core embedded in the armor is connected by the endless energy provided by the patron, which will provide the power supply to cover the entire expedition. Endless energy, compared to the other knights, who were more interested in their own armor. The knights were more interested in their own armor. What Han Dong was most interested in was this miraculous craftsmanship. If it were his previous world, the nuclear power plant could be changed into a mobile electric power supply device, and it could barely be called an endless energy source. Han Dong could not figure out how the steam energy could be infinite in modern times. The great demon commander's voice continued. "Through your clockwork mechanism, you will be able to pick up and equip your armor. Next, I will give you half an hour to test your armor in between the thrones. Individuals and teams are allowed to challenge each other to a duel. If you find any armor problems during use, report immediately. At the same time, there will be hundreds of mechanical god assistants in the square to check the fit of your armor. If there are any problems, on-site debugging and repair will be carried out. These mechanics from the City of Steam will also participate in the Great Expedition with us and can debug and repair our armor at any time. At the same time, they will also build a communication network for us that will not be interfered with by Eternal Night." As the voice sounded, mechanical god assistants, carefully selected by the City of Steam, appeared at the edge of the square. They were all wearing robes in the form of a gear cross. Their faces were transplanted with mechanical prosthetic eyes that could be magnified in high definition. A large number of mechanical tentacles were grafted, which could greatly improve work efficiency. The automaton faith is also going to participate? Could it be that Mr. Newton will also participate? As Han Dong turned his head to look around the square for traces of Newton, all members of the expeditionary force had passed the certification and unlocked the power armor. Steam rose, and pieces of flawless armor were revealed in front of everyone. In the beginning, Dimpus wasn't too interested in this type of armor. But when he saw the finished product, he showed a faint smile and gave a comment in a low voice. "Interesting. The power armor manufactured by the City of Steam was simply divided into the following 4 types. Amplification can increase the physical functions of an individual's strength, defense, agility, and other physical functions while reducing the burden on the body. Technical reduces mana consumption through the mechanical circuit embedded in the power armor. Multicasting can be done through the mechanical tentacles attached to the armor. The mechanical tentacles reuse the excess energy generated by casting spells. The effect is not as good as the spells directly released by the main body, but does not consume mana. Support has multiple honeycomb structures in the armor to achieve auxiliary aiming, vision enhancement, adaptive propulsion, and other abilities. It can effectively increase the accuracy of archers or mages, and it can also provide perception enhancement to scouts. When an individual is under close combat threat, the honeycomb sensor can capture the trajectory of the close combat attack. Through the micro-thrusters on the armor, the trajectory of the melee attack can be determined in advance, and effective dodge do not completely rely on the dodge assistance system. Comprehensive armor designed for some versatile knights with the characteristics of the above 3 types of armor, but the effect is weakened to a certain extent. Sister Wen Li, your armor is so big. Inside the team, the size of Wen Li's corresponding armor was almost the sum of the other people's, or even more. Its weight was probably thousands of pounds, and only a monstrous knight like Wen Li could handle it freely. It belonged to the amplification super heavy armor, and it also had the iron diamond mark of the Blacksmith Association on the chest, which had the characteristics of power drive and heat resistance. Corresponding to Mia was the technical light armor, which used a flexible metal with excellent flexibility on the back. When Mia transformed into a spider, it could perfectly adapt to the extraordinarily long spider legs on the back, and at the same time provide technical support for the spider legs. It could directly release and amplify witchcraft through the spider legs. Demps was wearing a support type, light armor, and the effects seemed to be quite satisfactory to Demps. As for Abel Lane, the genius who was most likely to inherit Captain Kai Meng's position in the future, the power armor he received was under the personal supervision of Captain Kai Meng. A large number of precious materials were used, a kind of ore that came from the Destiny realm, the Dragon Habitat. Through advanced smelting technology, a unique metal called Black Dragon Iron was obtained. Combining animal mechanics with advanced blacksmiths and mechanics, the heavy armor was made. But in terms of quality, it was the same as Han Dong's robe, a unique purple color. Heavy power armor, Black Dragon, has a special design of the helmet, exposing the eyes and above and covering the mouth and nose. The material of the helmet was high-purity Black Dragon Iron, embedded with the Dragon Breath seal, which could be used with Abel's dragon physique to achieve the effect of spitting dragon flames. At the same time, it also had a unique dragon tail design, which was perfectly compatible with the dragon physique. Chapter 795. As rookies and important training targets of the Holy City, the power armors they received were all mid-upper level. Han Dong and Abel's power armors were of unique, purple, quality, and the other three's power armors were of excellent, blue, quality. At the same time, they were integrated with the most advanced steam technology. Due to the half-hour repair time given by the Great Demon Captain, the knights who experienced the power of technology for the first time were eager to give it a try. After dozens of days of rest, they were full of energy. They immediately began the adaptive practice within the team, which then slowly developed into an intense practice between teams. The mechanical deity assistants, standing on both sides of the square, also collected data related to the operation of the power armors through multiple auxiliary artificial eyes. Han Dong also took out the special armor custom-made by Newton, the Holy Magic Cloak, and played with his teammates. Not long after, heavy blood pressure covered the entire team. Nicholas, your power armors seem to be very good. It was Lucius' team. Blood Knight Lucius, who was ranked second in the previous night conference, was also given special treatment. It corresponded to a medium-sized armor with a cloak structure. The interior was equipped with a specially designed blood sac crystal tube that could extract the high-energy blood carried by Lucius in advance and turn it into blood steam, with 300% operating power. Necromancer Lunds received a strange support-type armor. It was more like a floating seat made of dark steam. It could carry Lunds and allow him to fly at low to medium speed. The back end of the seat was also equipped with a metal skull made of internal plating technology by perfectly injecting metal into the bones and inheriting the features of the bones and replacing them with metal. Then, It was connected to the main body's nerves and magic circuits through metal tubes and sensors. It was also known as the servo skull. It could perform necromancy, perfect double casting, through the skull. Shadow, Jin, senior sister Jean received a kind of close-fitting soft armor made with the same metal textile technology as Han Dong's. It covered the whole body and was equipped with a large number of miniature sensor traps. It could perfectly fit senior sister Jean's movements, provide power support, and conceal her breath. It could kill the target in a faster and more secretive way. Seniors. As Han Dong greeted them, he had a bad premonition. Why don't our two teams have a spar? Is it convenient to check if there are any problems with our armor? Looking at Lucius's posture, it seemed that he was serious. After all, there were dozens of sparring matches between teams in the throne room at the same time. The sound of magic and physics colliding ignited many people's desire to fight. However, Han Dong received the power armor almost a month in advance, and his excitement had been exhausted. Furthermore, Han Dong and Captain Xia had already fought for a total of 300 rounds using the simplest physical combat method last night. Currently, he had no desire to spar at all. Besides, because too many things had happened last night, Han Dong only had one thing on his mind: sleep. Han Dong pretended to be stupid and said, "You want to test the power armor? There's no need to spar. To be honest, Senior Lucius, I have a cooperative relationship with the machinery faith. I can repair it for you." After that, Han Dong deliberately revealed the gear cross on the back of his robe. At the same time, he opened the demon eye on his forehead and pretended to be a senior inspector. It was at this moment that a scorching hot palm landed on Han Dong's shoulder. Abel took the initiative to step forward. Nicholas didn't seem to have rested well last night. Let us spar with the seniors. Not only Abel, but when Lee and Mia were also full of energy. Among them, Mia had the idea of protecting her husband. As for Demps, he looked indifferent. "Oh, come on." The spar was about to begin. The dragon flame collided with the blood, stirring up a huge amount of bloody mist. While the skeleton was recovering, it was also accompanied by lightning. At the same time, a super-fast shadow would appear behind everyone from time to time to carry out a super-fast assassination. They could only rely on the cooperation of Mia and one Lee to delay Senior Jean, who was so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. The huge battle also attracted the attention of several mechanical deity assistants. Sometimes, they would take the initiative to intervene in the spar, making detailed adjustments to the armor and providing critical repairs. As time went by, the members of both sides were completely immersed in the enhancement effect of the power armor and the battle. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Han Dong slowly retreated from the battlefield and planned to find a quiet area to rest for a while. Who knew? Another aura, an even stronger smell of blood, came from the side. Ha! A laughter with strong charm and a fishy smell entered Han Dong's ears. Even though he had yet to see her, her seductive laughter was like a drop of red dye dripping into Han Dong's mind, painting a fresh and fragrant woman in his mind. Captain Shaya. Unique materials, the latest technology, and the seal of the machinery faith. It seems like you're not being honest. As a member of the Secret Word Knights, you should be working hard in the Secret Museum, but you privately established a close relationship with Malone, Shinigami, Mr. Black and White, and me. I thought these relationships were enough. I didn't expect you to have a private relationship with Newton. Ha! With Mr. Black and White's permission, I also built my own biological laboratory. Due to some accidents, I established a scientific cooperation with Mr. Newton. I'm not a member of the machinery faith, and I'm only a third party. Humph. That's good. I don't like those mechanical bastards. The things they worship are already out of touch with humanity to a certain extent. Let's not talk about this for now. According to the great demon and the parliament, once the gathering is over, we'll officially depart. It seems like you'll fall asleep when the expedition departs. Captain Shaya, you've been whipping me for an entire night. How can I be in good spirits? Humph. Ordinary people can't even get whipped by me. Come with me. I'll take you to the Eternal Castle to rest for a while. Isn't the sparring only half an hour? There's going to be some special forces entering later, and the great demon has prepared a very long speech. It's enough for you to rest for a few hours. Besides, you haven't entered the eternal castle before, right? I'll take you to see it in advance, in case you don't have a chance in the future. Okay. Han Dong had a helpless expression on his face. He vaguely felt that Captain Shaya seemed to have other intentions, and it wasn't just taking him to rest. After all, Captain Shaya's other identity was a duchess, a first-class noble, and she was also a core member of the royal family. Chapter 796. Eternal Castle, Royal Palace District. Han Dong only had the privilege to enter this area because of the Duchess. Walking along the luxuriously decorated corridors, the patrolling guards all lowered their heads in front of the Duchess and addressed her respectfully. The aura exuded by each of the Imperial Guardsmen made Han Dong shudder. Nicholas, do you know how the Holy City's royal family was formed? Did the former king of Italos pass it down through the hereditary system? No. More than 200 years ago, the king of Italos, Vittorio Emanuele II, died when the hybrid demons awakened. The exiles from all over Europe gathered in Italos and drove away the few hybrid demons to build the Holy City. As the Holy City stabilized and more people appeared, the Holy City elected the parliamentary monarchy. A few people with strength, wisdom, and virtue were all high-ranking members of parliament. Under their supervision, a special royal family system was established. As the era changed, the meaning of the royal family changed. Since it was the symbol of the highest status, it had to be the strongest in the destiny realm. At that time, before the formation of the Knight Orders, the highest goal of the people with fate was to become a member of the royal family with their own strength. Commander Shea, you mean the royal family members were selected through some kind of competition? That's right, rather than royal family. You can think of it as the first-generation Knight Orders. Some of the older generation like to call the royal family Zero, Knight Orders 0. Later, the formation of the 13 Knight Orders and the detailed establishment of the royal family system were derived from the rules of the royal family. Of course, as time passed, the Holy City's royal family changed. The fighting power of the Holy City gradually leaned towards the 13 knights, and the royal family slowly retreated behind the scenes. Some descendants of the royal knights were also counted as members of the royal family and received certain preferential treatment in the Holy City. The royal family also no longer recruited directly from the knights, but secretly recruited directly from the 13 Knight Orders. Knight Order 0, that means these guards belong to the royal family. Then wouldn't the king be a commander? You're not qualified to know about the king. Come in first. I have something to ask you. Along with Xia Ya's push and pull, Han Dong was dragged into a luxurious bedroom that emitted a unique fragrance. The fishy smell and red decorations were obviously Duchess Shea's quarters in the royal district. I'll lend you my bed to rest. But before you sleep, there's something I need to talk to you about. Before Han Dong could react, he was pushed onto the soft bed. What's the matter, Commander Xia Ya? In such a strange atmosphere, Han Dong had a very bad premonition. He was afraid that if he continued to delve deeper, his protagonist aura would not be able to withstand it. I heard that the council is interested in recruiting you. However, since you participated in the Great Expedition, even if you want to be an intern member, you have to wait until the end of the Great Expedition. At that time, you will join the Parliament as a returnee of the Great Expedition, and there will be less gossip. Before that, are you interested in joining the royal family? As a duchess, I happen to have an extra training slot under my name. Moreover, the members of the royal family who are directly recruited by me will receive the same privileges as Count. You will have more opportunities here. According to Han Dong's understanding, the royal family was more like an elite training camp. By the way, isn't Senior Lucius good? Lucius is indeed good, but he has other things to do in the Scarlet Knights. Moreover, you are more interesting in comparison, especially the Sacred Blood incident that happened last night. Are you willing to come? Commander Xiaya, I'm already too busy in the Secret War Nights. If I have the title of the royal family, my freedom will be completely deprived. As Commander Xiaya knows, I'm in contact with many people in private. I also have many secrets and some necessary things that I need to deal with and supervise personally. Thank you for your kindness, Commander Xiaya, but I don't have enough energy. Even if it's the Parliament, I will try my best to refuse. Compared to power, I prefer freedom. I hope Commander Xia, you can understand. While Han Dong tactfully refused, the shadow of the whip flashed. Smack! The familiar whipping feeling spread throughout Han Dong's body, causing him to roll around on the bed in pain. However, while he was rolling around, Han Dong felt a nourishing blood energy spread throughout his body, completely healing the accumulated injuries in his body. Next, he only needed to have a good sleep to recover to his best state. Humph! Hurry up and rest. I'll call you before the expeditionary army departs. Before Han Dong could thank her, Xiaya had already left. Han Dong put his hands behind his head and stared at the ceiling. Commander Xia, you probably invited me to join the royal family for some power struggle. Sigh, I don't even have time for research, let alone politics. Let's sleep. Hopefully, Dr. Swollen has already packed everything outside the city. While Han Dong was sleeping soundly in the Duke's bedroom. Between the thrones, the machinery faith's basic cultivation of the power armor had been completed. In the next phase, all the special forces formed for the Great Expedition would be deployed, including one, the combat nun, that absolutely countered the hybrid demons. 2. Taken from the fallen knights in the Tau prison, the research of the machinery faith combined with the resurrection potion provided by Han Dong to create the synthetic brain death soldier, a zombie force that retained the ability of night, replaced the body with mechanical prosthetics, and installed an information collector in the body. 3. The eternal night wolves that were 10 times faster than the expeditionary army for reconnaissance and surprise attacks. 4. Boundary masters selected from the Sorcerer Knight Legion and the Misfortune Knight Legion would form the Magic Net Envoys. They could simultaneously create a magic net boundary that covered the expeditionary army at any time and under any circumstances. 5. The Eye of the Expedition, formed by the Crow Company under the Knights of Plague, the members of the Lightless Religion under the Wind Knight Legion, the Riders Association, and the Prophets Association to provide large-scale reconnaissance and illusion defense for the Great Expedition. 6. There are also some special parts that did not need to be separated from the legions due to their secrecy. At the same time, from the back of the Eternal Castle, several dragons from the magic world flew and stopped on the pillars around the square under the control of the Imperial Army. Some of the Imperial Army dragon riders would cooperate with the Expeditionary Army's Air Force to join the Great Expedition. Controlling the dragon race was not as simple as spending destiny points. Similar to how Malone became the king of hell, individuals had to go to the Destiny world where the dragons existed and undergo the extremely difficult Dragon Knight examination. Finally, the Great Demon Captain gave a speech about the Great Expedition, which involved the stages of the Great Expedition, the estimated time plan, and the final goal of the Great Expedition. At the end of the impassioned speech, the emotions of the knights were raised to the highest. The dragons standing around the square raised their noble heads and let out a deafening roar. At this time, the Great Demon Captain took another step forward. On his back, a demonic wing that was more than 10 meters long suddenly grew out. Standing at the front of the bird's eye view, straightening his arm, pointing directly to the north, which was the final destination of the Great Expedition, the nest of a certain old king frowny-faced city of London. Londinium. A loud and excited voice came from the mouth of the Great Demon Captain, resounding between the thrones, suppressing the roars of several dragons, spreading throughout the holy city. We are invincible in front of us. Chapter 797. When Han Dong fell asleep, he directly skipped the explanation of the various stages of the expedition and the appearance of the special forces. He almost woke up naturally. However, when Han Dong woke up, the person standing beside the bed was not Commander Xiaya, but a familiar person wearing a white mask, Mr. Black in White Daytime. This was the royal area, and Han Dong slept on Duchess Xiaya's bed. The way Mr. Black in White entered was obviously abnormal. For some reason, being stared at by Mr. Black in White made Han Dong feel uneasy, as if he was caught in the act. After all, Han Dong had stayed with Commander Xiaya for the whole night and did not inform his teacher before they set off for the expedition. Teacher, Xiaya seems to have given you some opportunities and privileges. I came here this time because I have something to tell you. Yes, you are outside the city, and compared to other nights, there is a clear difference. Your uniqueness may bring you convenience, but it may also bring you danger. You need to adjust yourself outside the city. Yes, the main thing is to tell you one thing. The expedition is expected to take at least 2 years. During the expedition, there is a gate of destiny in the ruins of the city. The expeditionary army will also use the time when the garrison is resting to let some knights who are worth training or those who are heavily polluted or seriously injured enter. You should be one of them. There's a problem here that needs to be paid attention to. There is a difference between the gate in the ruins outside the city and the gate in the holy city. Isn't the essence of the gate the entrance to the destiny space? Could it be because of the hybrid demons? Yes, even those guys outside the city who think they are superior to humans are still very interested in the gate of destiny. You also know that the hybrid demons have been trying to enter the destiny space for a long time. It's just that the destiny system absolutely rejects non-human creatures. Even the most sophisticated disguise will be seen through. Decades ago, the hybrid demons began to mix with humans to obtain dependence with human blood. They sent them into the destiny space in an attempt to decipher the secrets of the destiny space and obtain the internal power. But when the dependents pass through the destiny space, there's a high probability that their memories will be erased and they will become residents of the destiny space. For so many years, the Yimo had been thinking of ways to touch fate. They began to modify the gate of destiny and use a device that could be described as huge to interfere with the gate of destiny. This is the information I obtained through astrology. I don't know how they're doing or to what extent they can interfere. In short, if the expeditionary army attacks the hybrid demon's city and tries to enter the destiny world through the hybrid demon's modified gate, they need to carefully consider it. Okay, thank you for your reminder. Yes, after saying that, Mr. Black and White, who was in his white-faced state, turned into photons and dissipated in the light. Teacher also has many secrets. Let's go. A modified gate of destiny? We'll see then. Han Dong secretly left the castle. When he returned to the square area, he was just in time for the last item before departure, energy drive. The endless energy, which was personally developed by the investor, would follow the team. This project could be said to be one of the key factors that determined whether the great expedition could proceed smoothly. After all, the power armor worn by everyone, as well as the super-large mobile sanctum and the large steam carriage carrying goods, all needed energy to be driven. Endless energy can be said to be the core of the great expedition. The hybrid demons are not stupid. If the energy system is too big, such as dragging a nuclear power plant along with the army, once a war breaks out, the hybrid demons will inevitably lock the energy at the beginning and destroy it through various means. Therefore, in addition to achieving endless energy, it must also have the characteristics of concealment and not easy to destroy. How to achieve it? Maybe it's not a problem that can be solved by technology. We need to borrow the power of destiny. Just when Han Dong couldn't rely on existing knowledge to speculate the result, the Steam Knights directly released the finished product. Waves of steam overflowed from the center of the square. Something slightly larger than a normal person slowly rose up. Rather than calling it a device, it was more like a person. Investor? No, it's a robot that looks like the investor. Endless energy appeared in the form of a palanquin. At the bottom of the metal palanquin, four intelligent machines representing the highest technology of the Steam Knights acted as palanquins. These intelligent machines were all made of dense copper. Under the premise of maintaining 50% copper, it was fused with a special metal that was exchanged with a huge amount of points. This metal itself had a certain degree of spirituality and could easily achieve intelligent transformation and enslavement. These intelligent machines were imprinted with the two marks of the Steam Knights and the machinery faith at the same time. They were also known as terminators of hybrid demons. Due to the extremely high cost of production, they could not be mass-produced. There were less than 10 of them within the Steam Knights. At present, the terminators of hybrid demons were used as palanquins. Once any hybrid demons approached the endless energy during the march, they would immediately be annihilated by the intelligent metal. The so-called endless energy sat cross-legged on the metal palanquin. Rather than an energy source, it was more like a semi-living machine built with the investor as the prototype. It was a perfect handicraft made of golden fat that perfectly fit gears, copper pipes, plates, and other metal devices. It was then carefully polished by delicate hands. Its big belly was designed into a large mouth structure. Except for the leaders of the army, even the elite knights saw the true appearance of the endless energy for the first time. Some elite knights who knew the ability of the investor couldn't help but sigh. What a big deal. The investor actually took the initiative to peel off such a large amount of golden fat from his body. I see. Is this the endless energy? At this time, the palanquin bearers took out a small box of gold, silver, and jewelry and threw it into the body of the investor's machine through the big mouth on the belly. Gold coins, gems, and pearls were first ground in a powder by the digestive organ made of metal and then perfectly absorbed by the fat layer. Sizzle. A steam with golden light overflowed from the gaps of the machine. For a moment, all the knights in between the thrones felt that the power armor was replenished with energy. The energy consumed by the sparring was all replenished. Han Dong was not shocked by the design, but by the crazy ability of the investor. Wealth is energy? Is this the ability of my patron? Furthermore, this is just a fat substitute that was stripped from my patron's body. From the power armor to the mobile sanctum that must be used during the expedition, to the endless energy that could now drive the entire expeditionary force. He had to admit that the contribution of the Steam Knights to this expedition was definitely the greatest. Chapter 798. The hybrid demons that occupied the world were not interested in gold, silver, jewelry at all. For more than 200 years, the survivors of the entire European continent, as well as parts of Asia and Africa, had gathered and lived in the Holy City. This also meant that there were large amounts of gold and silver mines outside the city. A large amount of treasures could also be found in the ruins of the city. In the early stages of the expedition, only a few carriages of gold would be enough to satisfy the energy supply of the entire expedition. At this point, the basic formation and various marching equipment tests had been completed. The road leading to the North Gate had been expanded half a year ago. The civilian areas along the way had been forcibly demolished to expand the road to a width of 100 meters and covered with a red carpet with golden edges. Only the brave and courageous expeditionary forces that were willing to sacrifice their lives for mankind were qualified to step on the red carpet and receive the blessings, cheers, reverence, and gratitude from the people of the Holy City. The carriages had been led to the city gate in advance. The expeditionary forces that had been selected through layers of selection walked towards the city gate in the simplest way. In this way, they would bid farewell to the Holy City. What awaited them would be a great expedition that would take several years, and some of them would be completely lost under the eternal night. Total number of people in the great expedition, including non-knight god of science and technology, that provided technical support 3,280 people. The initial marching formation used a relatively stable semicircular formation that took into account both offense and defense. The formation of the humanoid units was as follows. The first legion, led by Death, was the left wing of the expeditionary forces, surrounding the left half of the entire army in an arc shape. The 2nd Legion, led by Malone, was the right wing of the expeditionary forces. Same as above. The 4th Legion, led by Shea, was the rear wing of the expeditionary forces, ensuring the safety of the rear of the army. At the same time, it provided healing and various support to the expeditionary forces. If the 1st and 2nd Legions were to suffer from a powerful area attack, there would be more serious casualties. The Knights of the 4th Legion who were good at fighting would step forward to fill the gap. The 3rd Legion, led by Jaros, had more than 90% of mages and long-range attackers. They were mainly filled in the inner part of the formation, providing powerful long-range firepower support to the flanks and rear wings. In addition, the special forces were interspersed in different areas of the Legion, changing their positions according to the terrain and battle situation. Note: air troops. Considering that the dragons are one of the expeditionary army's trump cards and core combat power, if they follow the expeditionary army by flying, they will become too big of a target and easily be exposed. Therefore, all the members of the aerial forces used a type of pet egg that they had purchased from the Destiny space to store and carry the aerial mounts. During the march, the Air Force would also follow the main force and ride in the carriages. As for the composition of the Air Forces, apart from a small portion of the Imperial Dragon Riders, the Air Forces were mainly composed of the Griffin Cavalry of the Wind Knights and the Black Hawk Regiment of the Behemoth Knights. Of course, there were also some knights in the army who could fly. If they encountered a large-scale aerial battle, they would also fight together. Mechanical units. Olivia Christian, the Grand Commander of the Holy Knights, was in charge of the mobile sanctum. Together with the mechanical deity assistant, red-robed bishop, it floated behind the army, adjacent to the 4th Legion. At the same time, there would be more than 10 boundary envoys guarding the sanctum to provide continuous concealment. Of course, this was not enough to ensure the safety of the mobile sanctuary. Therefore, after combining the opinions of the Grand Demon Commander, the Steam Knights were approved by the Council. Using half of the Steam City's engineers and the materials and manpower provided by the Knights of Misfortune, they spent a few months to build a military fortress that was 5 times the size of the sanctum. Demon King's Castle, a military fortress that incorporated the mobile construction technology, using magic brass and Demon King's crystal as the main materials, was meticulously built. It was located at the front of the army. Because of the size of the fortress, the dazzling magic crystal, and its position at the front, it could completely attract the attention of the hybrid demons. The sanctum, which was hidden behind an illusion, would be ignored to a large extent. The Grand Demon Commander, as well as the elite demons under his command and some secret forces, were hidden in this fortress and followed the army. Of course, such a huge fortress would consume almost 50% of the energy used during the march, so they would need to invest a large amount of treasures from their financial backers to support this fortress. The reason why the castle was built, in addition to protecting the sanctum, was a more important purpose. A hidden purpose hidden in the great expedition that was not disclosed to the public. Occupation and expansion. If the expeditionary army captured an important city ruin where the Gate of Destiny existed, the Demon King's Castle could be located in the center of the city as the core building, supplemented by the sanctum. With this, they could expand to the surroundings and build a miniature holy city. 1. The expeditionary army could garrison and rest in the miniature holy city for a long time to relieve the mental pressure accumulated during the Evernight. During the garrison period, they would also support some people to enter the Destiny realm. 2. Using this to evaluate the possibility of territory expansion. In addition to the aforementioned Demon King's Castle and Mobile Sanctum, there was an important non-human unit that needed to be explained. Frowny Face Eye of Expedition. This was the name of a special force and also the name of a facility. It was a special Destiny crystal. Eye crystal collected by the Machinery Faith, the prophet of the Holy City, the author, and the members of the Lightless religion over decades. It was a semi-living sensory device created. Its appearance was a mechanical base plus a huge eye structure. The base was about 2 meters high, and the lightless eyeball was about 3 meters in diameter. It was set up in the center of the army. In the army, any perceptor who had been bound to this eye could use this eye to perform sensory overlay. It also had the effect of breaking illusions and unobstructed communication. Perceptors were interspersed in the various regiments of different armies. When the army entered the land deed area, the clockwork device's communication system would fail, and information would be transmitted through the perceptors connected to the eye. Even if they were isolated by the darkness, the Eye of Expedition could also be used as a lighthouse, emitting dimensional light beams to guide the expeditionary army lost in the darkness. In addition, there were some small and medium-sized armory, warehouse, and treasury that followed the army. Everything had gone through hundreds and thousands of decisions from the Holy City. All the factors that existed in the expeditionary army were the optimal results of discussions. Stepping out of the city gate, the entire army boarded their respective vehicles and galloped through the Gaines Forest in the north. The low-level demons and monsters that existed in the Gaines Forest either avoided them in advance or were chopped into minced meat by the heavy iron hooves. The humans who had been wantonly plundered and captured by them had long since become different. Great Expedition. First stage. Head to the northern border of Italos, about 600 kilometers away from the Holy City, an important city of the original humans, Milan, to carry out the attack and capture. Chapter 799. 5 days ago, outside the city, Stuart Manor, Han Dong had just completed all the orders for the resurrection potion from the machinery faith today. Using the remaining time, he had to carry out the necessary moving process. Although Stuart Manor also belonged to Han Dong, it was essentially a small title deed and could not be moved with the title deed, nor could it follow Han Dong on the expedition. Similarly, Port Ostia, which he had just taken over not long ago, was also not part of the title deed. Only Scarlet Manor could move with Han Dong. Therefore, before the expedition began, the necessary forces, experimental equipment, and various resources had to be moved to Scarlet Manor. At the same time, strict zoning and rules had to be established to prevent different types of life forms from squeezing into the small manor and causing conflicts. It was about what to bring and what to prepare. Han Dong had long made a list and handed it all to the doctor. Now, Dr. Swollen had completely become Han Dong's most trusted and closest assistant. Other than the two of them appreciating each other in scientific research, the doctor's potential was also the highest in the manor. After all, the doctor had once found the ghoul gear from the old king. In the ruins of the Stuart Manor after the incident with the old king. It was perfectly embedded into the brain. After handing over the task, Dr. Swollen did some calculations in his brain and ensured that he could complete the moving within 3 days. Han Dong returned to the city because he had some matters to deal with. Han Dong was not too sure how the doctor had done. After all, the storage and release of the mobile title deed was limited. Han Dong did not dare to use the moving title deed in the holy city that was full of prophets, perceptors, and writers. Not to mention using it. Even the slightest touch could cause a strange aura to leak out and be discovered. He only dared to store it in the depths of his brain. Perspective cut when Han Dong followed the expeditionary army and stepped out of the holy city and out of the supervision. He used the concealment effect of the crow carriage. A piece of parchment emitting the smell of blood was held in Han Dong's hand. On the surface of the parchment, ancient and distorted words were written with blood. These words were high and could not be looked at directly. At the bottom right corner of the parchment, there was a yellow seal. I'm going to Scarlet Manor. Han Dong was immediately sucked into the back of his left hand as he placed the deed on the back of his left hand. The parchment floating in the air was immediately grabbed by the second holder, dimps, and stuffed into the slit of his sleeve through his sixth finger. Space compression. In the blink of an eye, Han Dong was already on the path of the garden. The Scarlet Manor, which was originally simply divided into front and back gardens and mansions, was now divided into 3 areas. 1. The front garden and the mansion remain unchanged. A large number of dead trees and tree houses were planted in the garden area to serve as the Crowman's habitat. Some of the high-quality blood descendants and barren rank hybrid demons were left in the mansion. At the same time, a cemetery was specially set up in the front garden to accommodate a general that Han Dong had just recruited, Corpse Keeper. The back garden was transformed into a lake filled with seawater. At the same time, some simple buildings were built in the lake. The bottom of the lake was covered with strangely shaped conches. The fishermen selected by the port city lived here. This group of existences related to the deep sea, in Han Dong's opinion, might be of use at some point in time. 3. The underground area was transformed into an underground laboratory similar to the one in Stewart Manor by Dr. Swollen. However, the scale of the laboratory was relatively small, and only the necessary facilities were moved in. More of the space was designed as a nest. This design was just enough to let the population of the Scarlet Manor reach the saturation point, and he was quite satisfied with the doctor's work. However, there was still one thing to be confirmed. As Han Dong stepped into the manor, Dr. Swollen, in a white robe with a half-open skull and an antenna structure on the surface of his brain, quickly came to the surface through the manor's passageway that was similar to the structure of the intestines. Because of the breakthrough to mature hybrid demon, the doctor's taste had also changed. The strange clothes and the design of the brain's head were unpredictable. Doctor, the manor's transfer was done very well. Thank you for the praise, sir. By the way, the anti-pressure potion that Sir ordered has been brought over. Do you need to inspect the goods? Just bring it over. As long as the quantity is guaranteed, there are no other problems. There won't be a large-scale conflict in the early stages of the expedition. Doctor, you can continue to do some stability research. Yes. Sir, please allow me to take you to visit the cave. Okay, it took about an hour. Han Dong left the manor's space with a satisfied smile and returned to the carriage. Dimps also put his hand on his shoulder and joked with a smile. It seems that Lord Nicholas is very confident about this expedition. I'm not confident, I just did a good job in this aspect. The manor has been arranged. Once there is a suitable opportunity, I will start the land deed war. At that time, I will definitely give you a wage. As for the land deed war, Han Dong also talked to the team in advance and asked for absolute confidentiality. The members of the team who were very specific would definitely play a key role in the land deed war. This was also the reason why Han Dong led everyone to join the expedition. Compared to other lords, Han Dong had two advantages here. 1. The hybrid demons did not have biotechnology. 2. The human combat power from the Holy City. Speaking of which, where are we now? We are about to leave the northern border of Gwyn Forest and get ready to cross the Aragad Mountains. That's fast. Well, Gwyn Forest is basically not dangerous. If we hurry, we can reduce the time we are exposed to the eternal night. By the way, do you have any information about the first stage of the expedition, Minano? Abel shook his head and said at the same time, even a top prophet like Mr. Black and White would not be able to obtain information in advance in an area 600 kilometers away. However, since it is designated as the first stage of the expedition, it must be recorded on the hybrid demon slate. Nicholas, aren't you in charge of the research of the slate? I'm just a beginner in deciphering the slate. I really don't know. At this moment, Dempus pushed up his spectacles and added, That's right. Minano is the former second city of Italos, and it is also the city chosen by God where the Gate of Destiny appeared. Such an important area must correspond to a high-level land deed and the hybrid demon recorded on the subsidiary slate. Mythical hybrid demon. Mythical hybrid demon? Han Dong spent all his time on learning dark magic, manor matters, scientific research, and building relationships. He did not seriously read any books about the hybrid demon. Of course, there were only a few records about the mythical hybrid demon in forbidden books. Even if it was described in the simplest human language, the author or the viewer would fall into a state of extreme panic. It was like a primitive savage who saw a footprint in the forest. It was a footprint of a huge beast with sharp claws that he had never seen before. It scared him so much that he did not dare to continue walking in the forest. Chapter 800. Listening to the words, mythical body. Abel and Mia, who were following the carriage, broke out in a cold sweat at the same time. And from Han Dong's expression, there was only curiosity. He quickly touched Dempsey's side, waist with his elbow. Explain. By the way, tell us the details of the classification of hybrid demons. Nicholas, you're the first person to break the seed of a mature hybrid demon since the establishment of the Holy City. You still have Count's consciousness, but you don't even know this kind of information? Dimps, you are very clear about this kind of scientific knowledge. I don't need to waste time reading books. In Han Dong's eyes, the two most important functions of Dimps were borrowing money and teaching science. Okay, although the rest of the team also had a certain understanding of the classification of hybrid demons, but they still didn't know how to advance and what kind of changes happened. Cough, cough, Dimps cleared his throat before starting the lecture. Everyone also subconsciously stretched their heads forward and listened carefully to Mr. Deng's lecture. Even Scarlet Count in Han Dong's body was excitedly connected to Han Dong's hearing and listened to the lecture together, because Count could smell the scent of a king from Dimps. The highest level of hybrid demon that everyone has encountered so far is the mature demon. Simply put, the mature demon is the second stage of the hybrid demon. The change from newborn to mature is still relatively big. Mature abilities and perfect consciousness. A fully mature hybrid demon can get a good position under the old king. A special existence like Scarlet Count even got the first signature of the moving deed. Every mature hybrid demon had a specific title and name. When facing them, even a gold rank Knight Squad could be completely annihilated. Everyone is very clear about this point, so I won't say more. The next stage is the really important stage. The difficulty of a mature hybrid demon to reach the next stage is almost 3 times that of a newborn to mature, or even more. I believe that Scarlet Count has also been stuck at the mature stage for a long time. Nicholas, this guy is quite interesting. Let me out. I want to be part of the discussion. Ka. The flesh on his arm exploded, and a terrifying blood dog appeared in the carriage. As the dog's mouth completely split open, Scarlet Count's head slowly peeked out from the inside. I'm here to listen as well. Please continue. Indeed, I've been trapped in the mature body stage for a long time. Even though I've obtained high-purity blood wine from the blood god, I still have no clue about atavism. Only I, who had rebellious thoughts after being pierced by the holy sword, managed to get a glimpse of the truth of atavism because I established many close connections with other forces in private. The accumulation of knowledge and contact with many king-level existences allowed me to see some of the truth of atavism. As for the appearance of the Count's head, everyone quickly got used to it. Dimps adjusted the bronze mirror slightly, lowered his voice, and continued his lecture. In theory, the mature body is an individual with a fully developed body, soul, and ability system. It can even be described as perfect. However, such a posture is far from being close to the truth, not enough to touch the unreachable other side of the starry sky, not enough to peek into the true abyss. It is just trapped in a narrow perfection. If you want to reach the next level, you must give up. Give up the world rules that are fixed in the head. Give up the self-awareness established since childhood. Give up the solidified form and body. Touch the truth in an extremely distorted and unreasonable posture. Only such a hybrid demon can reach the next stage. That is the atavism body. Atavism. Han Dong's understanding of this term was still at the biological level. Well, return to the indescribable, undefined, and indescribable ancestral posture. Listening to Dempsey's lecture, Count himself was the one who had the deepest understanding. After all, this was what he used to pursue. He still remembered that one time, when Count was in a state of enlightenment, he found that his body in the mirror showed an atavism posture of limbs and flesh. But this state only lasted for a short period of time before it could not be found again. Demps asked softly, Count, have you had a similar atavism feeling before? Yes, but I couldn't catch it. If you catch it, we are dead. After all, the atavism body, hybrid demon, is something that even elite knights are afraid of. Ordinary knights like us will die with just a touch. The atavism body, S ability has touched the system of rules to a certain extent. It is very difficult to deal with them through conventional combat experience, and it is even more difficult to kill them through conventional means of death. Atavism. Ha ha. At this time, Count also laughed wildly and began to talk about some of his experiences as a blood descendant. The hybrid demons under the blood god's command seemed to be stronger than their peers because of the nourishment of the blood wine. In fact, everyone is sealed by the inherent product of the blood wine. Compared to other hybrid demons, it is more difficult to achieve atavism. Of course, there are also some hybrid demons that can achieve atavism at the level of the blood wine. But in this way, they will never be able to break free from the shackles of the blood god. No matter how strong they become, they will still be pigs under the whips of pigs. Dempus gestured for the Count to pay attention to the lesson as he continued. Let's stop talking about the atavism body for now. If the fully atavistic hybrid demons go one step further, or touch the brilliance of the other side of the universe with their thoughts, or use their bodies to copy the truth inscriptions in the Forbidden Abyss at this time, the atavism person will officially step into the next level. That is the mythical body, hybrid demons that we need to face in the first stage of the Great Expedition. Together with the land deed in their hands, it is enough to fight head-on with the leaders. Of course, the siege is definitely not as simple as you defend and I attack. If it involves the mythical body, it will inevitably involve the old king behind it. Let's see how these leaders deal with the siege. In this way, Dempsey's lecture in the carriage lasted for a few hours. During this time, everything was normal. The army that crossed the Gain Forest also slowed down the speed of their migration. It took a whole day to cross the entire Aragad mountain range from the relatively flat mountain road to the real outside world. Most of the knights opened the curtains out of curiosity, wanting to see what the world where the human ancestors lived hundreds of years ago was like. However, what was displayed in front of them was only a completely depraved, corrupt world. It was also at this time the clockwork of the entire expeditionary army was forcibly turned on, and the voice of the great demon leader came from inside. We are about to reach this secondary important city, Perugia. We will launch an experimental siege. It is estimated that 500 knights will be deployed to attack from the front. Chapter 801. When the great demon commander gave the expeditionary army the goal of their first battle. Inside the crow carriage, Count, who was born in the mouth of the blood dog, suddenly trembled. Scarlet Count knew the situation of the secondary important city, Perugia, better than anyone else because he had been there for a period of time. Once, Count tried to expand his personal network and accidentally contacted the president of the Writers' Association in the Holy City. The Scarlet Count, who had traveled tens of thousands of miles to the Aragad Mountains, also passed by Perugia, a city full of artistic aura. The old king behind Perugia City and the old king behind the Count weren't on opposing sides. Count, who carried the mobile land deed, was warmly received by the Lord of Perugia at the beginning because of his identity as a lord. Count, who had consumed a lot of energy on the journey, also planned to stay in Perugia for a while and try to expand his network to establish contact with the old king here. However, he lived in Perugia for less than 2 days. Count abandoned all the ideas that he had formed in advance, found an excuse, and fled the city overnight. Even after entering the Aragad Mountains, he was still worried. He set up a large number of bloodline scouts along the way to ensure that there were no monsters chasing after him from Perugia. It was not until Count arrived at the other end of the Aragad Mountains and placed the land deed and fully opened the Scarlet Mountain Villa that he was completely relieved. Once he thought of the time when he lived in Perugia, he still felt a little scared. You humans really know how to choose a place to attack. This city is very strange. Even I, Count, don't dare to enter easily. Not to mention anything else. I've privately established relationships with 5 different factions of the Old King, including the Deep Sea of Dreams. Even so, in the 2 days I lived in Perugia, it was like staying on the edge of madness for 2 years. This city corresponds to the medium land deed, and the owner is the atavistic body, hybrid demon you just mentioned, and it is a guy who can make me feel very uncomfortable. Count, who had the crazy laughter characteristic, was inclined to madness. The existence that could make Count feel uncomfortable, crazy, and afraid immediately attracted Han Dong's attention. He continued to ask, "Oh, you're even scared of Count? Bah, did I just use the word scared? It's just that the level of the atavistic body is higher than mine. Besides, I'm in someone else's territory, so it's natural for me to feel uncomfortable. Count, can you briefly explain the characteristics of this Lord of Perugia? If it's suitable, we can also choose to fight. After all, a medium title deed is pretty good. Don't think of the land deed war so simply, okay? The only reason this Earl lost to you was because you cheated, Brad. Of course, it's also because I haven't been able to comprehend the atavistic posture. Otherwise, all of you would have died long ago. Kid, your ability, this Count has seen it all. You want to use a one-sided battle to defeat the lord of this city. This Count doesn't want to die with you. I'm just looking at the situation. There's a high probability that I won't start a land contract war. Count, hurry up and share the information. If the opponent is really difficult, we won't participate in this matter. It's good to stay in the army and be a bystander. It's not that Count doesn't want to say it, but he simply doesn't want to recall that experience. Since you have a request, this Count will generously tell you. Squeak from the depths of the dog's mouth. Several twisted, blood-colored tentacles grew out and weaved into two arms, so that Count can more vividly explain his impression of the city of Perugia. The Lord of Perugia has a special name, the Painter. Although I don't know how he was formed, whether he was the son of the old king or evolved from evil and wild monsters, I personally am more inclined to the evolution of a human race. Even if he has completed the atavistic transformation, to some extent, he is more inclined to the human race. He himself is very interested in the art and culture left behind by the human race. Perugia also retains more than 90% of the original human buildings. The Painter transformed the Perugia Academy of Fine Arts into his unique Lord's Castle. The interior is full of his highest-rated local artworks, as well as his own crazy works. During the 2 days I stayed in Perugia, I lived in this palace. At first, I felt good about the Lord hospitality, but after an hour, I began to feel that something was wrong. Even if I drink blood to stay awake, I will still be affected by that strange influence. Mental influence? Han Dong was surprised. He didn't think that Count would be affected by mental influence. Although Count doesn't want to admit it, that feeling made Count feel a rare fear. Well, it's a kind of mental erosion that I have never felt before. It's different from the mental tide that comes from the deep sea. The crazy paintings I saw in the castle of Perugia will uncontrollably appear in my mind when I close my eyes. Between the paintings, a group of rats will come out and crazily gnaw my brain. The blasphemous voices of the rats lingered in my mind, and I couldn't get rid of them. Even drinking high-purity blood can only temporarily suppress it for a period of time. After 2 days, I even feel that my head has become a blasphemous rat nest with tens of thousands of rats living in it. My mental state is also worn down to the bottom. At the worst, several rats directly squeezed out of my nose and mouth. At this time, the city scenery I see is completely different from when I first entered the city. Even the atavistic body under the blood god's command has never made me feel such a huge pressure. Count made exaggerated gestures while describing his terrifying experience. It was enough to hear how heavy the shadow in Count's heart was in the city of Perugia. This lord who lived in seclusion in the city was obviously difficult to deal with. Paintings, rats. These things that couldn't be explained with common sense made everyone's scalp tingle. They even felt that there was a squeak sound in their heads. However, Han Dong, on the other hand, showed a strange interest after hearing the Count's story. The rats in the paintings, Count, you can't even withstand your mad laughter? Although this Count's mad laughter is not as perfect as your current mad laughter, it is still a relatively perfect mental ability. If it was a one-on-one situation, I would definitely be able to withstand it. However, at that time, I was in someone else's castle with the effect of a land deed. In a passive situation, plus the gap between me and this lord, it is normal that I can't withstand it. Interesting, I planned to sign up for the battle, while Han Dong made the decision. He looked at the other members of the team. This kind of strange, mental, atavistic body hybrid demon is not suitable for you to deal with. Everyone stay in the carriage and rest. Well, husband, you have to be careful. Mia was the first to be scared. Abel and Wen Li, who were inclined towards combat, naturally didn't have the confidence to deal with this kind of existence. If they were mentally invaded, it would drag the entire legion down. Demps adjusted the gears of the monolithic bronze mirror and said with a smile, "Nicholas, I will go with you." Chapter 802. Experimental Siege Battle. Target: capture Perugia City, one of the most important cities of the original humans. Currently corresponding to a medium-sized land deed, Perugia was also the capital of the same province and the capital of Umbria. It was a famous cultural city with a long history. It was located at the top of a mountain about 500 meters above sea level. The scenery was beautiful. Facing the Tiber Valley and Lake Trasimeno, it was easy to defend and difficult to attack. Its strategic position was very important. For more than 200 years, the steam train tracks and transportation stations were built at the foot of the mountain, so the ancient city of Perugia at the top of the mountain was well protected. The winding streets and roads and the rising ancient city buildings were a major feature of Perugia City. Deployment of troops: 1. Siege Commander, 1 Corporal Knight. 2. Siege Knights, about 500, including Special Forces. Voluntary registration. There is no limit to the number of participants. At that time, the Eye of Expedition will be used to conduct preliminary investigation of the target city. According to the comprehensive information of Perugia City, the most suitable siege army will be selected. Reward: the knights who win the siege battle will be awarded a third-class ribbon and have priority in obtaining supplies and treatment in the following expedition. We will arrive at Perugia City in 2 hours. Knights who volunteer to participate in the siege, please gather in the Demon King's castle in 10 minutes. For a time, the expedition army's formation changed to a certain extent. About 700 knights signed up to participate in the first siege battle of the Great Expedition. Inside the Demon King's castle, a demon perception officer in charge of communication was reporting the information to the Great Demon Commander. Commander, when using the Eye of Expedition to spy on Perugia City, there was a strong mental backlash, causing 5 perception officers to fall into a deep state of corruption. They are currently being sent to the mobile sanctuary for treatment. The information obtained from the spying did not meet expectations. A large number of original human buildings were preserved in the city. The mental corruption in the city was extremely high. The hybrid demons entrenched in the city also showed a high degree of chaos. The possibility of a large number of overlapping spaces in the ancient buildings could not be ruled out. At the same time, the keyword rats was also obtained. No information about the Lord could be found. After analyzing the chaotic attribute, there is a high probability that the Lord behind this city corresponds to the old Upper King. Commander, do we need to send the Evernight Wolves to conduct a super-fast close-up investigation? A chaotic city with mental corruption? The wolves don't have enough mental defenses, so it'll be dangerous for them to investigate. Then, should we give up on the siege plan, change the route, and choose to take a detour? After all, the old king corresponding to this city is not the ultimate goal of this great expedition. Ha ha ha! Why would he give up such a good opportunity? Since this city corresponded to the upper old king, as long as they follow the rules, the possibility of the old king personally descending would be reduced to 0. Only some lower old kings like to meddle in other people's business. How many knights signed up for the siege? Is everyone here? A total of 782 people, all gathered in the hall. directly activate the magic crystals in the castle and create a strong thought storm. The knights who could withstand the attacks would be allowed to participate in the siege. At the same time, let as many combat nuns as possible to participate in the battle. I like to see how capable these hybrid demon killers are. Yes, for a moment. As the main building material of the castle, the magic crystals lit up with a purple luster. Demps immediately reminded Han Dong beside him. The thought storm is coming. It seems that the great demon commander has already seen through the characteristics of Perugia City. For a moment. The thought storm produced by magic elements swept through the brains of every knight present. A group of knights fainted on the ground. The magic element storm would not cause any negative effects to individuals, and the fainting was only temporary. On the contrary, it could replenish enough energy for individuals. On Han Dong's side, his spirit was not affected at all. He just pretended to be affected and supported himself with one hand. After all, some of the knights present were in the same position. If they performed too well and were assigned a special mission, it would be troublesome. Han Dong just wanted to be a quiet, salted fish in the siege. Just as you felt the thought storm. Perugia City is a hybrid demon city that mainly relies on mental corruption. Only those who pass the mental defense are qualified to participate in this siege. Congratulations on successfully being selected as the vanguard of this experimental siege. This siege will be led by my Knights of Misfortune, the third captain, Arthur Demonized, as the siege commander. Your core goal is to, under the leadership of Arthur, start a war against the hybrid demons that occupy the city. Defeat all the hybrid demons entrenched in the city, cut off the Lord's head, and seize the title deed. Yes, sir. The commander, Arthur Demonized, knelt on one knee at the front. He had almost the same demonic skin as the great demon commander. However, his white skin was covered with a large amount of impurities in the form of black veins and stripes on the surface of his skin. His physique was larger, and the outline of his muscles was more obvious. Normally, he would invest almost all his destiny points into demonic substances in pursuit of endless demonic power. However, under the seemingly manic muscles, there was a rather meticulous heart. He was highly valued by the great demon commander. The great demon commander stared at the knights kneeling in the main hall. His gaze lingered on Demps for a long time. Then he continued, "The reason why the experimental prefix is added to this siege. It is because we need to use a frontal attack to evaluate the probability of the old king's descent and determine some of the world rules that exist among the hybrid demons. According to the joint divination of several of the highest-ranking prophets in the Holy City, as well as the information collected from past expeditions. After the hybrid demons occupied the world, a world rule was drawn up. All the hybrid demons, including the king, must follow this rule. As living beings, we are also included in this rule. As long as we follow the rule and launch a siege, the old king behind the scenes will not be able to interfere personally. I have already told Arthur the specific method in advance. I believe that some of you have rich experience and have participated in medium-sized expeditions before, so you know what the rules are. I wish you a triumphant return." An hour and a half passed. The ancient city in the mountains, shrouded in thick gray fog, slowly came into view of the expeditionary army. Great Demon Commander, a spiritual-type hybrid demon messenger, has appeared at the foot of the mountain. It is trying to connect to the Eye of Expedition to negotiate with us. Let it connect directly to the Demon King's castle. Squeak, squeak, squeak for a moment. The sound of rats hissing rang in the castle hall. A hybrid demon shrouded in a gray robe appeared in the middle of the hall with a swarm of rats running around under its body. Chapter 803. Although the Great Expedition was the first large-scale, long-distance expedition of humans with the goal of the Old King as the goal. However, as early as 100 years ago, the main purpose of the expedition was to obtain information on the hybrid demons, seize the chaotic treasures, and the hybrid demon slate. The knights had also launched many attacks on the land deed territory, but they had never met the emissary of the hybrid demons, and he actually requested to negotiate with the human side before the war. Squeak, 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 squeak. The emissary at the bottom of the mountain of Perugia mixed his spiritual body into the sound of the flute by playing the bamboo flute. Then, using the eye of expedition as the center of perception, he directly sent his spiritual body into the demon king's castle. The knights gathered in the hall, all put on earplugs and goggles immediately, and quickly dispersed. Mature hybrid demon. The aura emitted was slightly weaker than Scarlet Count, but the danger was not low at all. World rules. Such an emissary absolutely could not be killed. Breaking the rules was very likely to lead to the arrival of the Old King. The Holy City was not ready for a decisive battle with the Old King. The great demon captain had already called the interpreter from the secret word Knights to his side. Who knew? When the flute stopped playing, the emissary lifted his hood. A handsome, human face was revealed. The face was engraved with black abstract style of a group of rats. He held the flute with one hand in front of his chest. His left foot was behind his right foot. He bowed politely to the great demon captain on the throne. Immediately after, the words that came out of the messenger's mouth were actually quite standard Italian. I, Truman Zuro, welcome your arrival on behalf of the Lord. I know you came all the way to Perugia with the intention of attacking the city. We are also willing to accept a reasonable siege battle. However, before signing the siege battle, I have a better proposal here. I wonder if this powerful human general is willing to listen. Form, speech, and behavior. The characteristics conveyed by this hybrid demon were almost no different from that of a human. Most of the knights present also showed a surprised expression. It was the first time they had encountered such a situation. In the knowledge of most of the knights, the hybrid demons regarded humans as an inferior race. They disdained to learn human language and preserve human culture. Tell me about your proposal. During this period of time, the city center of Perugia is hosting an annual art festival. The feudal lord had a strong interest in human art and culture. He had always wanted to engage in in-depth academic discussions with humans who possessed artistic knowledge. If there are any humans here who have high attainments in the field of art, please follow me to the city center. The feudal lord will treat you to a banquet of the highest level. If he can satisfy the lord's demand for art, he is willing to make some concessions on the signing of the siege strategy. With that, Zoro took out a parchment with the rat's seal. The hybrid demon language written on the parchment clearly stated, as long as the expeditionary army was willing to send humans with artistic knowledge to participate in Perugia's art festival, the humans would be allowed to add an additional ordinary rule when signing the siege strategy. Furthermore, the organizers of the art festival will ensure the safety of the human participants. On the surface, such a proposal was acceptable. Not only would it increase the odds of success in the siege, but it would also allow a group of people to enter Perugia in advance and obtain information about the city. When he heard this, Count in Han Dong's body had already begun to speak crazily. It's the same trick. When this count went to Perugia in the past, these rats also said the same thing. You can't agree. These guys will use all kinds of art to plant seeds of madness in your brain. Even this count couldn't resist the mental attack. So how many of you knights can resist it? Don't get excited. I feel that the art festival is pretty good. When Han Dong heard the contents of the parchment, he was immediately interested. If the world law existed, then these hybrid demons would follow the rules. As long as the participants didn't die, Han Dong would be able to participate without worry. Don't. Didn't you say that you were going to be a salted fish in the siege? This count doesn't want to go to that madman's castle alone again. Don't panic. Even if you really want to go, it won't be just you, Count. There's also me and little brother Demps. Let's see what the great demon captain thinks first. If the great demon captain rejects this suggestion and directly starts a war, then it's fine. I really just want to be a salted fish. Just as the great demon captain was examining the parchment in his hand, the messenger Zoro continued to speak. Please consider carefully. I will be waiting for your arrival at the bottom of the mountain in Perugia. If you refuse to participate in the art festival and directly start a siege, the overlord will also agree. However, I hope that you can cherish this opportunity. It's really rare to see someone like the overlord that respects humans. Perhaps it can even provide you with information for your subsequent journey. After saying this, accompanied by a clear and elegant sound of a flute, the messenger's spiritual body slowly dissipated. Such a cunning style, it really fits the image of a rat. They're trying to use the name of art to lure our people into their territory and use the method of mental corrosion to thoroughly corrupt individuals. They will spread a seed of influence to our thoughts and disrupt our army from the inside. At the same time, they will obtain internal information from our army. Even if they fail in the siege, they will only lose a medium-sized land deed. However, they will obtain the information that we humans have prepared for hundreds of years. Prepare to directly start a siege. Demps, do you have anything you want to say? At this moment, Demps stepped forward. Great Demon Captain, I think that we could try to accept the other party's suggestion. If we can handle it properly, it will greatly reduce the casualties of the siege, and we can also obtain some crucial information. If other knights said this, they would be immediately scolded by the Great Demon Captain. However, Demps was different. In the years since he joined the Knights of Misfortune, Demps had been secretly training under the Great Demon Captain. The Great Demon Captain's trust in Demps was even higher than his captain. Oh, you have 100% confidence that you won't be affected by the atavistic body, as mental corrosion when you go deep into the land deed? I can't guarantee, but my friend can. After saying this, Demps smiled and reached out to pat Han Dong, who only wanted to be a salted fish. Chapter 804. Warren Nicholas. Although Han Dong's performance in the last night's conference was the most dazzling, even overshadowing the glory of the first place in the previous night's conference. But in the eyes of the Great Demon Captain, Han Dong's value was not as good as Demps. However, the Great Demon Captain was very clear about one of Han Dong's major characteristics. Since the establishment of the Holy City, there were only 2 residents with such characteristics. One of them was the existence that the Great Demon Captain was most afraid of. In terms of strength, the Great Demon Captain was not afraid of anyone in the Holy City, but he was quite afraid of one person, Harrison Hugo, perhaps because he had stayed outside the city for a long time, or perhaps he had a unique demonic physique. With his personal vision, the Great Demon could see images that others could not see from Captain Hugo's body, an indescribable phenomenon that could cause a trace of fear in the Great Demon Captain's heart. And this newly emerged Nicholas had a similar characteristic as Hugo, immunity to pollution. The opponent has a mental attack that can backfire on the eye of expedition. It's not just the problem of pollution. All kinds of spiritual suggestion, thought invasion, and hidden seeding methods exist, and it's not something that ordinary knights can resist. Even if you're not polluted, there is still the possibility of being controlled. Moreover, the lord of this city must be an atavistic body. Hybrid demon, this kind of existence is not something you can deal with. However, since it's your suggestion, Demps, I believe you can give a reasonable explanation. There's no need for me to explain. Great Demon Captain, please use Nicholas as your target and trigger atavistic body, level of thought storm to verify. What the hell? Han Dong was so excited that he spoke out his native language, but because it was a mix of dialects, the others could not understand. He quickly changed to fluent English. Hey, Demps, I didn't say I wanted to go. Who knew? Demps only used a seemingly simple and clear look to signal Han Dong. The latter could not understand the meaning of this look at all. Okay, the rest of you step aside. The Great Demon Captain also agreed to this suggestion. He straightened his white arm, pointing at Han Dong, who looked confused and seemed to want to explain something. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The power of the magic crystal gathered at his fingertips and shot towards Han Dong's head. Most people did not think that Han Dong, a young knight who had just graduated a year ago, could withstand such a storm of thoughts. Han Dong, who looked like a salted fish stood steadily under the blast of the storm of thoughts. He even put on a scornful smile. Of course, Han Dong did not deliberately show this kind of smile. Instead, it was a facial effect that came with the insane laughter attribute when one's thoughts were affected. Black liquid seeped out of the pores at the corners of his mouth, forming an exaggerated black, smiley face. Ha ha ha! When the crazy laughter came out, it dispelled the storm of thoughts in his head. Interesting. In that case, I'll allow the two of you to go to the central street of Perugia as artists and participate in the Lord's Art Festival. However, there were still risks in this operation. You must have an elite knight to bring you in. At the same time, there was also a holy knight who could provide holy purification. After all, only Nicholas had the pollution immunity physique, the others still had the possibility of being contaminated. Among the knights attacking the city, is anyone willing to participate? The great demon captain made this arrangement only because he considered Dempsey's safety. The Demon King's Hall was silent. In anyone's eyes, they knew that the art festival was a conspiracy, but they still wanted to go. Although these two young knights were quite special, they were going to go deep into the fallen city ruled by the atavistic demons. The so-called world rules were also set by the hybrid demons. Killing one or two humans might not be a problem. Even if they could escape, if they were deeply contaminated, they would be abandoned by the expeditionary forces and fend for themselves in the world outside the city. Since there's no one, I'll arrange it. At this moment, it was so silent that even the great demon captain did not smell it at the first moment. A knight who did not emit any breath and looked like a puppet stood behind Han Dong and Demps. The appearance of this person also made many of the knights present flash a trace of fear in their eyes. On the other hand, the great demon captain showed a satisfied smile, as if with the participation of this knight, the safety of Demps could be guaranteed to a large extent. Secret Whisper Knights, commander of the puppet guards, Charlie LeBlanc-Bermanchev, is willing to participate in this operation. Senior Charlie. Charlie also looked very helpless. I said that I would return the favor during the great expedition. But you really know how to find trouble. From Charlie's eyes, it could be seen that even he could not guarantee the absolute safety of this operation. At the same time, another holy knight who emitted a holy aura walked out from the crowd. She could provide purification while moving. Staring at the blonde female knight who emitted a strong holy aura, the great demon captain also gave a very satisfied evaluation. Combat Nun, quite a good combination, can provide purification and combat assistance. Not bad. This infiltration operation is named Art Exchange. The four of you prepare to take a high-speed carriage to the foot of the mountain of Perugia City in half an hour and meet with the hybrid demon messenger. If you can complete the art exchange without being affected by the mind and obtain detailed information about Perugia City and the Lord, you will be awarded a silver ribbon. Yes, the last combat Nun to join the team was also Han Dong's acquaintance, Wino Celeste. When the four of them left the Demon King's castle, Wino reached out and pinched Han Dong's right cheek. You always like to cause trouble. I really don't want to accompany you to die. Sister Wino, it has nothing to do with me. Han Dong, who looked like a salted fish, even wanted to run back and tell the great demon captain that he did not want to do it anymore. Moreover, the Scarlet Count also caused a ruckus in Han Dong's body. All kinds of negative words were constantly coming out. For example, if you want to die, why do you have to drag this Count to die with you? This Count wants to see your regret when the time comes. I bet with your characteristics, you will definitely be executed at the end or be made into a human art piece. The culprit of all this was Demps, who was standing beside Han Dong with a smile on his face. He blocked out the almost decadent Count in his mind. When he stepped out of the Demon King's castle, Han Dong lightly punched Demp's arm. Hey, why don't you hurry up and explain? Demps held his arm and made a painful expression. Ouch, I did it for you. For me? Don't tell me that when we were near Perugia City, your brain did not have any reaction. What reaction? Chapter 805. There's no reaction in your head? There's really no reaction. Dimps, what are you doing? The conversation that followed was about privacy. Dimps hugged Han Dong with one arm and pulled him to a dark corner in the outer corridor of the Demon King's castle. Based on my speculation, your head should be connected to the old Upper King on the back of Perugia City. What? It's not entirely my personal speculation. There's also the information provided by Mother. Who is it? This old king is a bit special. You can't call him by his name, nor can you call him by his code name. As long as there's a life form that wants to use symbols to express him, it's possible to invite the abyss. However, information related to this existence will definitely be answered in Perugia. After all, this is the coverage of the medium land deed under his command. Dimps, you also have your own purpose, right? Dimpus pushed up his spectacles and said with a deep expression, "That's right. If you can become stronger, it can also increase the overall survival rate of our team. Moreover, Nicholas, you also want to use the opportunity of the Great Expedition to figure out the secrets on your body, right? Don't worry, this is the Great Expedition, not an ordinary mission. I won't joke with my life. Even if the entire army is defeated, you and I can't die here. You and I, plus Knight Charlie, whose strength is unknown, and an orthodox combat nun can at least ensure the basic safety." Smack! Han Dong slapped Dimps's back heavily. If it's that simple, I would have made the decision a long time ago. The reason why I didn't stand up and mention this to the Demon King was because the risk assessment hasn't been completed yet. Moreover, the count of my body has been causing a ruckus. Perugia has left a huge psychological shadow on him. Let's go. When the expedition army was 5 kilometers away from Perugia, a high-powered steam carriage rushed out alone at twice the speed of the marching army. Inside the carriage was the 4-person team that had just been formed. Considering that they would be going to the city center as guests to participate in the art festival held by the hybrid demons, the 4 of them put away their power armors and changed into clothes that fit the guests. Knight Charlie, who was the strongest in the carriage, had the weakest aura. Coupled with Knight Charlie's relatively thin body and Mediterranean hairstyle, he looked like a weakling. Nicholas, since the infiltration plan was set up with you as the center, you should be the center. I'll leave the command of the team to you. I'm only responsible for ensuring your safety and will try my best not to interfere with the progress of the incident. All right. Han Dong's favorite kind of knight was a very casual but powerful elite knight like Charlie. After all, not only did he have to participate in the art festival and deal with all kinds of mental pollution lurking in the dark, Han Dong also had to unearth the secrets hidden in the city during the art festival. Wino, what happened? Wino Celeste seemed to be the one with the most combat characteristics in the team. Moreover, the divine aura emanated from her body would definitely be rejected and targeted by the fiends. For the next infiltration operation, you need to pretend to be my wife. What? Wino, who was born as a nun, had undergone a lifelong vow ceremony in the monastery. Marriage was absolutely forbidden. Moreover, as a combat nun, she had to maintain her chastity. It's just a disguise. After all, the divine aura in your body is too strong. No matter how much you suppress your aura, it will still be sensed by the fiends in the fallen city. The only way is to stay by our side throughout the entire process. I'll help you further conceal your aura to avoid unnecessary trouble. In addition, if you stay with me at all times, I can also ensure that your mind will not be affected. The potential risks in this fallen city are higher than what the expeditionary army estimated. Wino still looked a little embarrassed. We combat nuns are also protected by the holy light in our spiritual consciousness. There shouldn't be a problem. Han Dong crossed his hands in front of him and said solemnly, "The mental corruption in this city is enough to make a mature fiend go crazy." Do you understand what I mean? Wino stared at Han Dong, who was abnormally serious and even had a somewhat frightening expression. She couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Yes, I understand. They arrived at the bottom of the mountain entrance of Perugia City. Han Dong held Wino's hand in a gentlemanly manner. Although Wino was not very comfortable at first, she quickly got into character under Han Dong's careful guidance. Dimps and Knight Charlie walked side by side at the back. What came into view was an ancient city in the mountains shrouded in gray clouds. The buildings and streets built against the mountains were arranged from bottom to top. Although the entire city in the mountains exuded a heavy sense of degeneration, the basic architectural style of the city was still more human. The Lord here did not make too many changes to Perugia City. It was very likely that he had preserved the original architectural style and local culture. To a certain extent, he did have a respectful attitude toward human culture. The bamboo flute messenger, Trumanzuro, was waiting for everyone at the entrance of the street at the bottom. He was also holding some strange white molds and dyes in his hands. Everyone, before participating in the art festival, please draw a mask to express your inner thoughts and artistic taste. It will be convenient for you to find friends at the art festival. Don't worry, the Lord himself is very respectful of human beings, especially human artists. You don't have to worry about your safety at all. If any resident dares to hurt you, they will incur the wrath of the Lord. Okay, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Han Dong and his teammates also made their own artistic masks. In his previous world, there was a movie that had a deep impact on Han Dong. When talking about masks, he thought of the guy mask in V for Vendetta. This mask also contained a special meaning. The mask made by Demps was called face cover. For different palms, cover the mask to seal the facial features. Charlie used ingenious handiwork and coloring skills to polish the mask into a solid wood texture. Night Wino did not know much about art. Under Han Dong's suggestion, she printed the image of a cross. Speaking of which, you're the first batch of normal humans to participate in the art festival. The Lord will be very happy. Next, let's walk up the mountain in the simplest way to adapt to the environment of Perugia City in advance. Although the Lord has preserved the original human buildings, we have lived here for more than 200 years. Some of the characteristics will be different from humans. By walking up the mountain, you will be able to adapt in advance. Don't show any discomfort in front of the Lord. The Lord hopes that you can more naturally accept and appreciate everything here. Chapter 806. The moment they set foot in Perugia City. The feeling was so different that it felt like they had stepped into a different dimension and were completely isolated from the original world. Han Dong, Dimpus, and Wino were temporarily unable to adapt to the change. They stopped at the street at the bottom of the mountain for a short period of time. Only Night Charlie's expression remained the same. It was as if he had participated in a similar siege before and had already adapted to the changes in his senses. Is there such a big difference between a medium land deed and a small land deed? This feeling is almost completely isolated from the outside world. Under the effect of the land deed, Perugia City is completely a sealed area. Count, who was talking crazily in his body, also jumped out and mocked Han Dong. You don't even know this. How can you be a lord? The medium land deed and the small land deed you have are fundamentally different. It's not just a matter of coverage, but more of a space dominion. Why is Count so determined not to come back here? A large part of the reason is the strong restriction of the medium land deed. Back then, I had to consume a life crystal given to me by the blood god in order to escape the restrictions of the title deed. Why didn't you tell me this earlier? How would I know that as the lord of 2 manors and the messenger of 2 old kings, you don't even know the difference between the land deeds? I don't want to talk to you anymore. Since you're already in the city, you should be prepared to face the atavistic body. Let's talk. If you don't understand anything, just ask me. I'll be more careful with my words, but please don't take things too hard and go against the painter. Han Dong shook his head and temporarily closed the communication with Count's consciousness. In fact, during the 1 to 2 years of contact with Count's consciousness, perhaps because of the physical body and the changes in the surrounding environment, some of Count's characteristics were more and more similar to that of a human. This was a good thing for Han Dong. His vision switched back. The moment he set foot in Perugia City, his connection with the outside world was directly cut off. The clockwork device worn on his wrist was limited to 4 people's communication. The gray fog was like silk caressing the city built on the mountain. The staircase streets, paved with red bricks, were one of the main features of Perugia. Square stone buildings were closely arranged between the roads, and there were many bridges in the air between the buildings. Gray high walls that had been eroded by the wind and dilapidated red tile roofs could be seen everywhere, highlighting the ancient and vicissitudes of the city. However, such a historical city had been reduced to a corrupted city where hybrid demons gathered. The elegant beauty of the ancient city had been replaced by a strange, twisted beauty. The streets at the foot of the mountain were slightly deserted. Occasionally, some gray bodies could be seen piling up randomly between the buildings, drawing some despicable artistic graffiti with the dark body fluids in their bodies. Rats, a foul stench, and strange hisses filled the bottom of the mountain. Envoy Zorro gave a simple explanation of the situation. Please ignore these lowly residents and their artistic creations. Those who live here are the lowest class of Perugia's evildoers. Their existence was only to create raw materials for the upper echelons. Not only are they raw materials for food, but they are also raw materials for inspiration. You can think of the city at the bottom of the mountain as our farm. When the group of people followed the envoy to the mountainside, the number, quality, and taste of the residents had clearly increased. A resident that walked towards them was clearly different in terms of temperament and appearance. His sharp head was wrapped in white cloth, and a scarlet skull without skin structure could be faintly seen. His ruddy body was like a reptile, crawling on the streets through dozens of fleshy tentacles. What was surprising was that such a corrupted hybrid demon was actually wearing a human's gray cloth vest on its upper body. At the same time, it was wearing a kind of pants that was shaped like a tube with patterns on its legs. It was worn on each of its tentacles. The streets of the mountainside were much more spacious. A large number of residents were on both sides of the road, or in the open buildings, creating all kinds of art. They weren't randomly drawing on the buildings, but rather they were creating art with different poses on the drawing board. Some of the hybrid demons only used the most sensitive tentacle in their mouths to sketch the scenery or sketch living creatures on the drawing paper. Some of them used all of their tentacles to create complex oil paintings. Some tested people imitated the arms of humans, and even imitated how humans held a brush to create. During the creation, through the closely arranged buildings and the bridges in the air between the buildings, these hybrid demons would exchange experiences when they lost their inspiration, or they would entangle their tentacles together, or they would put one of their heads into the other's mouth. When staring at these works created by the hybrid demons, they would find that these works seemed to be alive. The seemingly normal scenery sketches would become abnormally distorted after a long time of staring at them. Even rats would crawl out of the buildings, and their squeaks would buzz in their heads. Of course, these were only second-rate works. The works of the real masters were listed in the Lord's palace, and they could have a deep impact on Scarlet Count's thinking. To be honest, being in the street full of a rich artistic atmosphere, Han Dong really wanted to see what the real master's works were like. Further up, the streets near the top of the mountain were sublimated again. Most of the residents here were hybrid demons. In order to sublimate their artistic thinking, most of them were in a state of imagination, because they sat in place for a long time, months, or even years, to draw and create. Their bodies were severely degenerated. They were even treated as a new home by the rats that lived in the streets. The cone-shaped bodies of the stacked cities were full of black holes, and rats crawled in and out of their bodies. In exchange for the degenerated bodies, they had an abnormally active brain. Similar to Dr. Swollen, their brains were 4 to 6 times the size of an ordinary person. At the same time, there were also different numbers of spiral brain holes on the surface of their brains. This was not the entrance to the rat nest, but a breathing hole. It allowed the fresh gray fog air to be directly inhaled into the cerebral layer to achieve the effect of refreshing the brain. They could also grow delicate tentacles made of brain cells from the brain holes to add a finishing touch to the work or to carry out an auxiliary creation. The works created by this group of hybrid demons had a particularly strong impact on the mind. Staring at it for more than 10 seconds would allow the distorted life on the paper to project into the individual's head and gnaw on their thoughts. When the distorted life on the paper was projected into Han Dong's head, it was directly swallowed by an even larger blood dog and turned into nourishment for the talent tree. Just as everyone was gradually adapting to the strange art in Fallen City, a low and gloomy music came from above. They were about to arrive at the central street where the art festival was held. Chapter 807. Count, when you came here before, did you also see such an artistic scene? Almost the same, but the atmosphere was not so dense. The art festival is in progress, so it is reasonable for the atmosphere to be dense. In this way, there is no problem. At least we can be sure that the other party did not deliberately make such a city painting scene against us. Moreover, the artworks that I have seen so far have no effect on me. TSK, what effect can the low-level works created by this kind of trash hybrid demon have? If it was just this group of inferior hybrid demons stationed here, would this count be afraid before? I can kill them all in minutes. Okay? These idiots are not even an appetizer. When you reach that guy's palace, you will naturally feel it. However, there is one thing I need to remind you. What is it? Once, when I noticed the abnormality, I decided to escape the city overnight. The scene that I saw was completely different from the original city street scene. It may be an illusion caused by the thought invasion, or it may be a special method set by the overlord in the city. At that time, I was in a hurry to escape, so I did not investigate further. Completely different city? What kind of scene is it? A distorted and abstract fallen city. Very interesting information. Count, you are quite reliable. Don't go against the painter. We could talk about anything. Rest assured, unless I am forced into a corner, I will not take the initiative to provoke this atavistic body. That's right. If I kill this painter, it should be a great help to you, Count. For example, by absorbing the blood of the atavistic body, maybe it will let you, Count, have a breakthrough and even touch the atavistic body. Don't. This Count is now in a good state. There is no need for a breakthrough. Han Dong snickered when he heard that. The more scared Count was, the more Han Dong wanted to see what the atavistic body, hybrid demon, looked like. Along the red brick paved streets, all the way up, they finally arrived at the Vanuatu Street in the mountaintop area. Only those who passed the art review or were invited by the overlord could enter this main street. At the entrance, there was a huge hybrid demon, mature demon, guarding it. This was also the first time he had seen a non-spiritual type hybrid demon since he had come up the mountain. Its huge body took up almost a third of the street, and the aura it emitted was slightly weaker than the bamboo flute messenger. He was wearing a leather coat with a strong religious color. The surface of the leather was inlaid with various styles of crosses, and some pages of the Bible were fixed. In his left hand, he held a meat hammer, a crimson-heavy hammer made of compressed meat with sharp spikes growing between the meat. In his right hand, he was holding a forbidden shield. The surface of a shield was covered with forbidden words. More than 10 different human hands were fixed on the surface of the shield, with iron nails piercing through the fingers and the bottom of the shield, as if to express that no one was allowed to pass through. Without the structure of his skull, it was unknown how he could use his sensory abilities. Another mature, hybrid demon, as expected of a city that corresponds to a medium title deed. However, it seems to be a newly formed mature body. Its strength is not as strong as Count or the hidden corpse that I just recruited. The envoy in charge of leading the way, Zoro, said, "Gouda, these are the honored guests invited by the Lord to participate in the art festival." The guard called Gouda didn't directly let them pass. Instead, he held the forbidden shield in his hand and leaned towards the crowd. The hands fixed on the surface of the shield opened their eyes of different sizes and carefully observed this group of outsiders, especially in front of Han Dong, for a long time. After confirming that the masks worn by the four people were emitting the aura of the Lord's palace, he slowly moved his body and allowed them to pass. Please don't mind. Gouda is a loyal servant that the Lord picked up from the outside. Except for the Lord's direct orders, he doesn't listen to anything. We are now entering the core street covered by this year's art festival. Only qualified hybrid demons with artistic attainments can participate. Everyone is allowed to have high-level artistic exchanges, creations, and art sales here. At the same time, they're also allowed to visit the Lord's private palace and art gallery for a limited time and accept the art assessment from the Lord. Only a few talented hybrid demons can be favored by the Lord and work in the art gallery. Okay, it was another important piece of information. From Han Dong's observation, Perugia had a serious hierarchical system. From a foot of the mountain to the top of the mountain, the corresponding level of residence in different areas was different. Even the current main street was divided into high-level artists and masters who could be recruited by the Lord to work in the art gallery. In other words, the core combat power of Perugia was basically concentrated in the Lord Palace. Moreover, Han Dong also faintly saw another problem. A large part of the hybrid demons here didn't like the artistic culture left by humans. They just wanted to improve their spiritual power by pursuing the artistic realm. They hoped to achieve self-improvement through artistic creation and reach the realm of atavism. It was still a primitive impulse to pursue power. When stepping on Venugia Street, the spiritual pressure in all aspects suddenly increased. The sacred defense line in Wino's mind was impacted to a certain extent. Just when she tried to pray to herself, she was pulled by Han Dong. Sister Wino, if you use your ability here, you will be targeted. Let me help you reduce the pressure. Han Dong hugged his side and then put his mouth next to Wino's ear. Such an action made her face under the mask immediately blush. But when she thought that she was acting as Nicholas's wife, she tried her best to suppress the resistance in her heart. Ha ha ha! The crazy laughter entered her ears. The unprecedented, refreshing feeling made Wino return to the state when she first came up the mountain. The whispers and strange sounds in her ears, the rat beasts and colors in her consciousness all disappeared. Nicholas, you. Follow me the whole way. Don't leave for any reason. Okay, Wino was a very strong girl since she was young. No matter what she did, she wanted to be the first and be stronger than the boys. This was the main reason why she could pass the combat nun test. A feeling of dependence that she had never felt before swept through her body. Staring at the young man beside her who hugged her, she no longer felt any repulsion in her heart. Just as they were about to arrive at November 4th Square in the city center, the messenger who led the way suddenly stopped. Please follow me directly to the Umbria Art Gallery to participate in the highest palace banquet that the Lord will also attend. Did something happen? The Lord gave a very high evaluation of your mask design, especially the three of you. You are exempted from the process of artistic creation in the square. I hope you have adapted to the artistic atmosphere here. Don't show any uncomfortable attitude in front of the Lord. Chapter 808. It's exactly the same trick. Back then, when this count came to this ancient city, he said that he would take me to stroll around the city and experience the local customs and customs. When we climbed to the top of the mountain, he changed his mind and asked me to go to the Lord's palace. He said that he had already set up a banquet and invited me, the Blood Lord who came from afar. In a situation where it was not easy to refuse, this count fell into this guy's trap. The palace is this guy's lair. There's no other way. Since the Lord has already made a request for a banquet, if I refuse now, I will be targeted by the Lord. Damn it, you shouldn't have gotten involved in the first place. During the 2 days I lived in the palace, it was like falling into a monster's food pot. In addition to the mental abnormality, there was also a feeling that I could be eaten at any time. Beaten? Why do you have such a feeling? This count often ate raw meat when he was young. To some extent, I can smell such a similar smell in the palace. But there's no way to be sure. There was a big problem with my mental state during those few days, and I even suspected that my memory had been changed. Okay, I'll pay attention. Han Dong turned to Wino, who was disguised as his wife. Please be sure to lower your head throughout and don't look at any works of art in any palace. You also need to lean against me at all times during the meal. You must not look directly at the Lord here. Among the four of us, only Knight Charlie can really fight against the Lord. Okay, as for Dimps and Knight Charlie, there was no need to remind them. Umbria Art Gallery, Lord's Palace. It was located in the center of Perugia, 4th of November Square. It was once the city government and the most famous gallery in the country. The bamboo flute connected to the lungs played a gloomy and low melody that could easily induce others to commit suicide. It used the sound of the flute to identify the identity. Rumble. The guard inside began to spin the heavy pulley device. The heavy iron door, which had been rusted by wind erosion, was slowly sinking into the ground, revealing the opening to the inside of the palace. The moment the iron door sank into the ground, squeak, 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 countless rats rushed out crazily. There were so many of them that the rats even stepped on the bodies of their own kind, reaching a height of several meters. He shook his head, and the terrifying rat tide immediately disappeared. Perhaps what he saw just now was an illusion, or perhaps it was a reflection of the palace's aura, or perhaps it was something that happened in another realm. Han Dong just happened to catch a glimpse of it. Wino lowered her head the entire time. Dimps adjusted his spectacles with a calm expression. Under Knight Charlie's mask, there was a frown. The banquet hall is on the 3rd floor of the mansion. There is still more than 40 minutes before the meal. I will first familiarize you with the structure of the palace and bring you to your respective rooms. After all, the art festival will last for 3 days. As distinguished guests who have come from afar, the Lord has already arranged a high-class guest room for you inside the mansion. It's a trap. Count jumped out again. With a feeling of curiosity and nervousness, he officially stepped into the palace. Except for Han Dong. The other three had taken corresponding protective measures. Dimps adjusted the special bronze mirror worn on his face and secretly changed it to a filter lens, which could effectively reduce the intake of visual pollution. Charlie even used a kind of puppet physique to temporarily turn the naked eye into a puppet's eyes. The effect was far better than ordinary goggles. Wino prayed silently in her head to strengthen the holy light defense. Of course, she relied on Han Dong to a large extent. She only needed to follow him and look at the ground the whole time. The main color was beige. It was paired with a large number of beam structures. It was illuminated by multi-bracket candlesticks. In the hall on the 1st floor, which was overflowing with a classical atmosphere, there were not too many works of art. There was only a row of paintings, a huge surreal painting, with the deep universe as the background. The left and right arms were only connected through a brain. The left hand was covered with delicate skin, like a soft female arm. The right hand was rotten and swollen, and there were even rat teeth and hair in the gangrenous area. On the open palm, the sun and the moon were suspended. Understanding the truth, this painting is the feudal lord's favorite work. It represents the feudal lord's spiritual dynamic when he was atavistic and the process of his mind when he touched the truth. If you are also a hybrid demon, this painting should be able to bring you the sublimation of your thinking. Understanding my ass. This count has seen this painting before. Why didn't I understand it at all? It doesn't help to understand the truth at all. Han Dong ignored Count's various blabbering. He did not care about how this painting would affect him. He stared at the painting with his eyes wide open, trying to understand the meaning behind it. Please come this way. The 1st and 2nd floors of the palace have been transformed into the VIP accommodation area by the feudal lord. The feudal lord will often invite creatures with artistic talent to his palace and provide the highest level of service, just to discuss art together and find confidence. Follow me. Your rooms are arranged here. They turn from the main hall to the corridor on the left. Occasionally, they could hear some mouse sounds coming from the corner and strange conversations coming from the guest rooms. It seemed that the art festival had attracted many artistic geniuses, and they were all arranged to rest in the palace. Can you arrange 3 guest rooms? Is there a large guest room that can accommodate 4 of us? The messenger smiled and tried his best to explain. This is the main palace of Perugia. The feudal lord pays more attention to some details. It's not suitable to live in a group in such a noble palace. 2 rooms, one for me and my wife, one for the 2 of them. I believe you can see that they are actually that kind of relationship. On the other hand, Dimps and Charlie, who were walking side by side at the back, were a little that. Oh, okay. I'll leave the keys to these 2 rooms to you. After about 15 minutes, you can go directly to the banquet hall. I'll send you here. Okay. As the messenger left, Han Dong and the others looked at each other and returned to their rooms. They thoroughly checked the rooms that they needed to stay in during this period. Then, there was a burst of crazy laughter that could not be suppressed. Just as Count said, the painting that seemed to have no big problems would cause a kind of gnawing mental erosion when one recalled it. Thousands of rats would rush out from behind the painting and try to gnaw Han Dong's brain, gnawing the talent tree hidden deep in his consciousness. However, as the black vortex on the surface of Han Dong's torso rotated, crazy laughter was heard. Several terrifying blood dogs also formed around the talent tree. Big mouths with thousands of teeth and tongues that stretched out dozens of tentacles. The blood dogs gnawed all the rats in a short period of time. Nicholas, the newly formed crazy laughter system, is really powerful. Count was shocked. He did not expect Han Dong to be able to withstand it. At the same time, the 2 young men next door also came to the room. Dimps used special fingers to dig out a concrete rat from his mouth and crush it. Night Charlie sacrificed an ordinary puppet to avoid the mental erosion caused by the painting. Wino, who had not seen the painting during the whole process, naturally did not have to resist anything. Everyone withstood the first round of mental impact. Such a scene was also seen by a certain existence in the palace. The indescribable, strange mouth hidden under the robe showed an extremely strange smile. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.